pickles, home baked goods. So, oops, sorry, we have a recording thing. I got it. All right. There we go. Okay. So I want folks to understand that crafting that law and really what we're doing now is a process, and it's a process of organizing. Dakota Rural Action is a group that organizes South Dakotans to make change, to improve things for themselves, their communities, to protect land and water. And so when we go about crafting legislation, we have a process, and that is really to pull people together, to do the research into other states' laws. What are other folks doing, getting that input from producers, farmers markets, vendors, et cetera, and then negotiating with the state agencies who are involved. In this case, it's the Department of Health, SDSU Extension, particularly food safety specialists. Some of you may know the food safety specialist who was on board when we did this first law. That was Joan Hagerfeld Baker. Currently, it's Curtis Braun. And then, of course, after we kind of come to an agreement about what we want to see in the bill, recruiting those legislative sponsors, and then the final step of lobbying for the bill's passage. And that original bill was unanimously supported. I went back and looked at the bill, and it actually got unanimous support in every committee and every floor vote. So pretty impressive there. And it made it legal to sell these things at farmers markets, farm stands, and what we call similar venues. So the guts of the law, and some of you are going to be real familiar with it, were the ability to sell acid and acidified canned goods under what's called a third-party processing authority system. And that is a testing, and certification of the process to products to be sold. So a number of us, including myself, actually, went and did a training with Joan Hagerfeld Baker and others to get certified as a third-party processing authority, particularly for the acid foods. So those are jams and jellies, things that are naturally high in acid. But with the acidified canned goods, things like pickles and salsas, where you have to add vinegar, lemon juice, whatever else, to bring the acidity to a place where, the food is safe to can using a boiling water bath method, those were tested and certified through extension. Also, the original law allowed for unlicensed sale of shelf-stable, non-temperature goods, rolls, breads, muffins, those things, like this beautiful banana bread that I found a picture of. And then, SDSU Extension website kind of curated the materials, gave people the information they needed. And one of the things that was added there, because it wasn't covered in the law, was the allowance for unlicensed sale of certain dehydrated foods, so herbs, teas, things like that. And so that provided, kind of a little extra space, in terms of what people could grow or could produce and sell. And like I said earlier, there's been a few tweaks to the law over the past, decade plus. For example, baked goods in particular, you're actually allowed to sell those out of your home now, things like that. But otherwise, it's pretty much the same system as we had, and we have had. But, over the years, producers have been saying, okay, we're working under this system, but, it could be a lot better. And asking for more freedom, more flexibility, being able to, to bring more products online, less expense and hassle. Of course, particularly with that third-party processing authority piece, you would have to have tested, a jar out of, a batch of every recipe. And, and particularly when you have to ship that across the state, and there's only really one person who's doing the bulk of the testing and certifying. That's a lot of hassle. It's expensive, et cetera. And then, of course, we hear from market managers, like, we want more clarity on the rules, like what people can sell, what people can't sell, and in particular, why certain guidelines have been changed without notice. And one of those things has been the dehydrated foods guidance, which was on the website for a number of years and has fairly recently disappeared. The other thing that, we're taking into account and understanding is that, neighboring states have really updated their laws to allow for this flexibility. And South Dakota's law, which was pretty open, pretty seen as, fairly groundbreaking, at the time, is actually now one of the more restrictive laws in the region. And so, one thing that we've seen in the past number of years is, these so-called food freedom bills that are coming forward. We've actually had a couple of iterations of those come up in the legislature over the past few years, and both of those bills have failed. The food freedom bills are somewhat different in different states, and we can talk about that at some point later if people are curious. But what we wanted to do, instead of taking what we've kind of seen a little bit as a cookie cutter approach from some of the national organizations trying to kind of bring a same or similar law into different states, we wanted to go through the process with producers themselves, market managers, to say, what exactly is it that we really need? So instead of kind of taking something, that is one size fits all, let's make it fit what we actually, want and need in this state. So it's time for an update, clearly. So that's what we've been working on over the past several months with a group of producers, market managers from across the state. So here are some of the things that we've heard from folks about the law. And one of them, a big issue is that the current law doesn't allow for people to kind of branch into some of the high demand foods that people are really asking for, and this changes over time. Obviously, there's been a huge sort of blow up in terms of what people are looking for in terms of fermented foods. But one of the issues with fermented foods is once you can them, once you heat process them, you're actually killing off the beneficial bacteria and things that people are looking for when they're looking for these foods. Folks can't sell under the home processed foods law. They can't sell certain kinds of temperature control baked goods, even if they're baked, and that includes, of course, South Dakota's official state dessert, kuchen, certain danishes and filled pastries, particularly if they have any kind of cream filling. And so looking at okay, how we sort of branch into these places, and make sure they're safe. Third-party processing authority, number one thing we heard from folks is this process is problematic. It is costly to ship goods across the state for testing and certification. It's inefficient to have only one person certifying the acidified foods, and of course, not necessarily a resilient system in terms of, if something happens to that person, whether they, leave to take another job or something terrible happens to them, we're sort of, producers across the state are out of luck, and that's super problematic. And then the other thing that people have pointed out, that producers have pointed out, is I can't change my recipes, even if, and one of the examples was, look, I'm making a strawberry jam and I'm short on strawberries, but I've got plenty of rhubarb. Can I make strawberry rhubarb? Well, under the current system, you can, but you have to then have that recipe, tested. You have to, pay for that certification potentially, with that third party processor. And so there's a lack of ability to alter recipes. And particularly with our smaller scale producers, you want some of that flexibility. You want to have, a safe product, but you also want to be able to, you know, um, be a little more creative and flexible based on, what you have on hand. And then another big issue that we heard from people is that the current law lacks guidance on dehydrated foods. And I mentioned that earlier, where there were some guidelines and for unlicensed sale of certain dehydrated foods, and those were on the SDSU extension website for a number of years, and then were suddenly removed without notification. So we heard from different markets and vendors across the state, who some of whom were still operating under the old guidelines that said, yes, you can sell these things. And then a producer would show up to a different market and they'd be like, hey, it's not on here, that's not something you can sell. Well, if you've gone through the trouble of creating a product for market and then you show up and you can't sell it, that's a real problem. Other things we've heard is, and this kind of goes into a Department of Ag issue, but we're looking into it, is that shell egg sales requirements are onerous and costly. There are, there's some gripes certainly with, with some of the extensive licensing that folks have felt that is too much. But the biggest complaint that we've gotten, and this was a complaint actually when we passed the original law, but we didn't end up addressing it. And that is, you have to sell eggs out of brand new cartons every time. You can't reuse egg cartons. Now, plenty of folks from markets across the state have said, oh yeah, people are reusing cartons, our customers bring them back, we do reuse them. But technically speaking, it's against the law in South Dakota. You cannot reuse egg cartons. And so I've actually got a call in to the DANR on this. And what's interesting to me is it's Gene, who's the guy who oversees this. He's the same guy that, I sat down in a room in 2009 and talked to about this. And at that point, he seemed fairly open to addressing it. It just didn't get, covered in the initial bill, but it's definitely something we want to revisit. And even if we have to do it as a separate bill, it's a real small fix, but it's huge in terms of expense for producers who want to just, sell, shell eggs out of, out of the farmer's market or farm stands. The one thing we heard is working and we should not touch it, is the current rules for shelf stable baked goods. Those work. The unlicensed sale, of baked goods, as long as you're labeling everything correctly, the barriers for entry in this area are really low. And actually, we've heard from market managers that this actually allows a lot of like younger entrepreneurs, and community groups to be able to kind of break into the farmers market, as a low barriers for entry. And so we are not touching that. We, with these potential updates. And then another thing that we've heard is that the extension website should provide accessible support. And I want to be clear, and I know there's extension folks on here today, that people were really positive about what currently exists in terms of resources on the extension website, in terms of food safety, in terms of farmers markets, and in terms of home processed foods law. But there was a suggestion that, and this is not something that we would probably codify in the law, but it's something that we are really asking for in terms of, so that we want to set up like an email or a contact list to notify, folks if there's any changes, to the guidelines, to the resources available, those things. And and I know with state agencies, like I get updates from, water rights programs. So I get a list every week of like, here are all the permits and things that are, that are up. Now, it's probably not necessary to do it on a weekly basis, but just to make sure that there is a way for that information to get disseminated to the public and to folks who really need that information. And then hopefully you can see this bottom part, because my controls are kind of slightly over it. But one thing that we heard, particularly from market managers, but also from vendors too, is that public confidence and public health is key. So, the success of our farmers markets is, really reliant on people's confidence that what they are purchasing there is a safe product. And that was one thing that, that was a major complaint that we heard about on some of the food freedom bills, was that, there was less of a sense of, that the product that we were going to, that people would be purchasing, would have some kind of oversight or some kind of assurance that, this is a safe product. And that's important, it's important, for that public confidence. And, this is a place too, where there's a difference between our, at least in my perception, and this is personally, my opinion, is that there's a difference between our smaller and more rural markets, and our larger, more, quote unquote, urban markets in South Dakota, is the fact that in the smaller and more rural markets, there is a higher tendency for the folks who are shopping in those markets, personally, the vendors in them, and maybe to know, okay, there's somebody who has 15 cats in their kitchen, and so there's sort of a like, okay, you have to decide if you're okay with that. Whereas, and no disparagement against cats, but in our larger markets where we have more of a population of people who don't necessarily know the people who are selling, there's a difference, I think, in the comfort level. And so that's where I think we have a little bit of, kind of push pull in terms of like, what's the bar in terms of like where we set our, standards for public health and public confidence, recognizing that there are differences in our markets. So here's, based on all this input that we've gotten, and we are still taking input, and I really want to stress that, particularly for the folks here, I want to stress that, yeah, we are still taking input, but here are some of the things that we're proposing, and I can flesh these out, in the questions if folks have further questions. One of them is, like I said, big thing is third-party processing authority, replacing that third-party processing authority certification with a food safety training course and certificate that to be renewed every 5 years. A couple of the pieces of that is we want to make it really accessible. We want to make it really affordable. And we also, and this is the second point, we want to use that to be able to expand some of the kinds of foods that are allowed to be sold. So, it's not just like, oh, you have to go through this food safety training course and then you do all of the things, you can only do the things that you were doing before. No, we really want to look at how we can expand that with food safety training. And we've had some conversation with folks at SDSU Extension who are currently running classes on canning, canning and producing food safely, to look at how we might be able to tweak that. And that's a process. We're still talking about that. Codifying the previously published guidelines, allowing the sale of certain dehydrated foods. So saying, okay, we were allowing this for a number of years, we need to put it into the law. Supporting vendors and market managers with that easily accessible information, technical support, updates, all of those things. And, once again, that's not necessarily something that goes directly in the law, but it's something that we're discussing in the process. Removing the requirement to sell fresh shell eggs in new cartons, keeping as is the unlicensed sale of shelf-stable baked goods, and grandfathering in, and this was a big point that folks made, grandfathering in, if you already have your recipes for acid and acidified canned goods, and you are making the same recipes and you have those certified already, grandfather those in. If folks want to continue doing just what they're doing, that's fine. We don't want to force them like into a new system. What we aren't tackling or including, and this is a big one because we had a lot of feedback from folks about, we want to talk about raw milk, we want to talk about dairy products, and we really determined that this is an area that is basically deserves its own fight, because it will be a fight. I mean, and we Dakota Rural Action, along with Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund a number of years ago, did take on raw milk, and it is legal in the state. We recognize that, like home processed foods law, there are folks who want to open that up some more, now that we've had experience with it. But we really felt like, okay, this is something that's probably its own beast. And so, we are looking at the possibility of taking you up, again in the future, but we didn't want to dilute, kind of some of the fixes that we were looking at with home processed foods. And then I didn't include this, but we're not tackling meat because meat is, a USDA issue. It's not a home processed foods issue. And so where we are in the process right now is we are looking for legislative sponsors. So we're starting that process. And so if you're interested in helping, please, contact your legislators and ask them to sponsor and or support this home processed foods law update. So this legislation. And this will be, coming up in the January 2022 session. So it's not a special session thing. It's, we're coming up on 2022 session. And so that's where we're looking at bringing the bill. Contact folks, who may not be aware of this. Contact your market manager or your vendors. Let them know what's up, and put them in contact with me if they have any questions or ideas on how they'd like to see it be made better. Because like I said, this is not written in stone. This is not even, written in a draft bill yet. This is, we have our proposals and we are going to be bringing them forward to draft into a bill. So by all means, get in touch and let us know. And then I would say plan to help lobby for the bill. If you want greater freedom and greater ability to bring more entrepreneurs into market, to expand your offerings yourself, then consider, planning on helping us lobby for the bill. And that can be showing up in person, which is, I know sometimes it's slog for people to get to appear in the winter. But, there's also the ability to call in to testify. There's also the ability to call or email your legislators ahead of, of committee hearings, of floor votes, and say, hey, I'd like you to support this. This is something that means a lot to me. So, really encourage that. And once again, if you're interested in those activities, let me know. And, we can kind of keep you on the list to let you know when it's coming up in committee. And wanted to just, provide my contact information here for folks who might want to get in touch with me. And I can put that in the chat as well, so that people have that. So yeah, thank you. That was my kind of rundown of what we're looking at. I'm going to stop my share now, but I will, I'll put my contact information in the chat. So
Thanks,
834.
Rebecca.
All right, got it.
It looks like we've got some questions from folks.
Great.
Angie and Brent asked, for issues raised by vendors and markets, have you found states that have better or improved systems in place? And which states are we looking at for guidance?
Yeah, and so I want to, give a shout out and credit here to my colleague Lily DePaula, who's on here, because she has done a good amount of research in terms of other states. And, particularly we're looking at Minnesota and Colorado. This is interesting because Colorado literally did not have a home processed foods law until after we passed ours. And then they invited me, as I was a DRA member back there, but not on staff, invited me to give a presentation. And they've since, really crafted an interesting system where they have this, kind of more of a food safety training model. Minnesota also, we had Lily and I had a conversation with the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, and she put us onto a couple of really good and helpful resources in terms of, kind of what they do. And they have their own cottage foods or home processed foods group that's, kind of a I don't think that it is actually a nonprofit, but it's a, it's basically a loose affiliation where they really support each other. And I don't know, Lily, if you happen to be able to pull up that information and throw it in the chat, but so those are some of the states. And of course, I mean, we're looking at, some of the food freedom laws that have passed and what could be useful in there. Wyoming, of course, is a lot of folks look at that for guidance. North Dakota has opened some up some as well. And then I see, go ahead.
Oh, we can send out that information to all attendees as well after this. So I'll make a note of that.
Yeah.
Chris has asked, with changing third-party processing, what are thoughts on recipes being reviewed for safety? So how are we going to be able to make sure that the acidity level is high enough, for example, things like that?
Great question. Thanks, Chrissy. What Minnesota is doing with that is basically if you have, if there's, there's broad resources for recipes that have been tested and approved in terms of food safety. So that's one way of looking at it. I mean, this is like, the process of creating this bill is a negotiation with, folks at Extension and Department of Health. And so one thought, that they had was, if you have a recipe that's sort of like widely, approved, has already been tested, to use and incorporate those resources that we have, the sort of compendium of recipes that have already been, tested. The other, and I think beyond that, possibly we still look at ways to have, that, once again, that support for producers, where if they want to try something that's really new, that there is that technical support, feedback, and help from our food safety, extension specialists. So yeah, I hear you on that. And, that's kind of a conversation that we're having as well.
And then we have a comment from Sandra saying that the new law needs to include freeze-dried products in with dehydrated foods. They're very safe and last a long time without with proper storage, and you have to control the humidity post freeze drying.
Sandra, I really appreciate that comment, and I've taken a note on that, and I'm gonna check and see, you know, if other states have any kind of guidance or guidelines on that, and then probably also, you know, have some conversation with Curtis Braun and Department of Health around that. So thanks for that. That's fantastic. Yeah, I appreciate that.
And if anybody else has more comments about the current law that you'd like to express to us, we will get you Rebecca's contact information, but we also have a really short survey just taking comment from people across the state, whether you're a market manager, a producer, or a consumer. So we'd love to hear from you. And that is in the chat.
Yeah, I'm putting my contact information in there now. Remember my phone number. There we go.
Are there any other questions from anybody?
Or comments? Or concerns? Like, hey, don't mess with this.
Sorry,
Rebecca,
my chat is all wonky. It's like typing sideways. Just a couple other product areas. I know people brought other types of herbal products, you know, with oils and that type of thing. I think there's something touchy there about shelf stability. And then, oh shoot, what was the other one? Oh, just other condiments that maybe are not as the high acid. You know, I'm not sure what they are, but I don't know if mustards or just different type condiments that maybe are more borderline with the acidity that you mentioned. Maybe some of those, I think in your first list, but it wasn't maybe specific.
Yeah, so I hear you, and thanks for bringing that up. I mean, some of the issue with, you know, like some of those infused oils, of course, is, I mean, that there is a risk for botulism and other foodborne illness and things like that, because it's like, you know, the low acidity, low oxygen environment, right? So, you know, that's a place where I think it's going to be like, you know, it's one thing to herbally infuse a vinegar, you know, in your home kitchen. It's a different thing to herbally infuse an oil for, you know, consumption for food products. And so, you know, I mean, these are conversations that, like, you know, okay, we have to make it clear, right? Because I mean, the biggest problem we see is when people are confused about what they can and can't do. And then condiments, that's well taken, because we've already had a little bit of conversation on that, like, you know, barbecue sauces or different things. And this is where I think there's some possibility, if we can sort of, you know, okay, there's some things where, you know, you can safely boiling water bath can them, you know, and sell those acid and acidified foods. But if you're getting into any places where, you know, there's, you know, a question on the acidity level or things like that, you know, is that a place where we can make room in the, you know, temperature controlled area? Like, if you can keep those products at, you know, at refrigerated temperatures to sell, you know, what's the space in there that we can make for folks? And so, like fermented foods, you know, you would want those, you know, acidities to be in a good place, but also recognizing you need to refrigerate those products. I mean, or at least, you know, that's the you know, suggested labeling requirement, or the required labeling requirement, like refrigerate. Oh, Chase, good question. Hi, Chase. I didn't see your name there, but welcome. Numbers available. Boy, that's so. The only way and maybe someone else has some ideas on this. The only way I could think of to get a grasp on that would be to sort of put together, like, okay, who's getting third-party processing authority certified, but then that wouldn't include baked goods stuff. So I kind of don't think we have like a number. But it's like every farmer's market you go to where you see canned goods, baked goods, those items, those are folks selling under this law. But I don't know. I'm looking at Jeff Stewart's name and thinking, Jeff, what do you think? What do specialty producers folks think? I don't think we can put a number on it necessarily.
Yeah, this is Jeff. We did 2 years ago, I think it was, Specialty Producers Association did a survey. And one of the questions was, or one of the topics that came up as the top, I don't know if it was the third or fourth top issue, was loosening up or easing up on the cottage laws to where specialty producers would have a little more freedom in what they could do in their homes and then take places and sell, not at the stores, but necessarily, but to the public. And that was a pretty big issue. There was, I don't know if we have 10 or 11 people on our legislative action committee of Specialty Producers Association, but we do have a committee and we will be having a Zoom meeting. And there hasn't been one big topic come up this year yet that people are really concerned about, but we'll probably have a Zoom meeting within a month and discuss all the topics and discuss our survey from a few years ago. And then we'll kind of go from there. I see one key thing would be to get together, and Rebecca and our committee, Rebecca is basically a member of our committee too. She's joined in on numerous Zooms last year, Zoom meetings, and we'll keep coordinating for the benefit of a good law. But once a good law is passed, good legislation, then I think a big key thing would be really getting the information out about it, what people can do, because there is confusion about what all people can do legally and ethically, morally, whatever. So that's going to be a key thing, is really getting the news out. And I know Extension hopefully will help a lot with that, and we'll be on board with the new legislation if there is new legislation. So, but yeah, that's about all I have to say, is just if you're on the Legislative Action Committee, we'll be having a meeting within probably the month, and to get ready for the legislative session. And we will discuss cottage laws, and I'll be getting with Rebecca to kind of, hopefully she'll sit in on it and have some input too. So anyway, that's all I got to say, Rebecca.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. And I want to point out as well that I will be stepping back from lobbying for DRA, and our new lobbyist is actually who hasn't quite, I think is starting on with DRA in a week. Chase Jensen is here on the call. So I really appreciate that. And Chase, we'll be getting together, to really do some work on this. And I guess I want to add too, like the numbers available on the, in terms of folks, doing home processed foods in this state. One of the other things that we've heard from producers is like, there's a lot of people who just say the requirements are too onerous, it's too expensive, it's too much of a hassle, and so we're just not going to do it. or they go, they seek out venues where they can sell they want and no one's kind of, paying attention to what the rules are. And so I think one of the things that, is important about, about this law is not just, for folks who are doing it now, but folks who haven't gotten into it simply because the bar is too high, it's too confusing, it's too much of a hassle, it's too expensive, those kinds of things. And so what we hope to do with this law is not just help the folks who are doing it now, but really potentially expand the ability for home processed foods entrepreneurs, to get started.
Yeah, touche. That's a big thing. You hate to see, and education has got to go right along with this, but you hate to see a lot of people. I mean, there's always going to be neighbor to neighbor trading of things, and
That's
eggs,
fine, and this is what I really try to stress to people. It's like, you can make and trade, barter, between your friends, whatever you want. Like, I don't want anything to do with that. I don't want to step into that space between like neighbors having a one-on-one relationship and, consenting adults is what I call it. Like, whatever you want to do, that's fine. But once you step into that public space and you're selling in a public venue, that's where, it's important, for us to be looking at, okay, how do we give the public an expectation, and not only an expectation, but an actuality of a safe food product.
Exactly. And I really look, I think farmers market managers have a big role in this too. And I know they're concerned about any law that's going to affect the safe sale of food at farmers markets and elsewhere. So that's good.
Rebecca, one other question I had in consideration. I had a call this last week for somebody that's moving into that aggregated system. They're not selling at a retail store, but they are, like a food hub or that level. And they were asking, does the food cottage law apply to them, or at that point are they a retailer? When you have a business owner or a producer group where people's products are being sold under one website, for example. So in a way, it's not directly going from the farmer straight to the consumer, but it's definitely not sitting on a retail shelf anywhere. And if they fit into this law.
That's a really good question, Chris. And I'm not sure I have. I could sit here and like cogitate about it and like I have a lot of thoughts about that. I mean, where is the product ultimately ending up? But I hear you about, and I think the operating principle here is probably the piece about, is it direct from producer to consumer? And if it's not, then we start to get into some gray area, right? But at the same time, okay, we have farm stands that, that aggregate some product and sell it. But
well, it's something to consider for the law.
Right.
If there could be some clarity there, that if you're an aggregated system selling direct to consumer, you would be included in this. I get when you're saying if it's going to a restaurant or something, but if there's a producer and people are starting to connect now and sell under one website or sell under one group, if it's going direct to consumer, I would think some of this could apply.
Right. Yeah. I would love to hear other folks' feedback on that, but I really appreciate that, because I think as long as you're not selling it in that retail space, yeah, it's different. Wow. Good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Jeff again. We're an aggregated, we're an aggregation system, and the ones I know about have contracts. The people that grow and aggregate, there's a contract, and it gets pretty detailed on how you have to fertilize and no herbicides and how you have to harvest. how soon you got to cool, in our case, berries down and get them to the cleaning and processing center. And so, yeah, we aggregate berries, but it's pretty much up to the aggregation company. And it's usually a company, a business that is responsible then to either turn those things into products and sell them retail or sell them wholesale to other entities that turn them into products. But yeah, that's kind of a gray area to a certain extent, because who's out there? In our case, we do have people that go around to the fields and check that the growers that are aggregating with our group are doing it properly. And you know, there's forms and stuff like that. So, but maybe not. I mean, there's no laws.
I mean, I guess, and you know, that gets into, sorry, Jeff, I didn't mean to cut you up, but I wanted to point out, like, it gets into like, what is the system for certifying? And I think that that question kind of gets back to like the point of the, you know, food safety, you know, course, rather than the third-party processing authority for each individual recipe, is that market managers and then like whoever's aggregating, right? You know, if you're basically you're running an online farmers market, you know, for your producers to be able to, you know, scan and send you a copy of the fact that they have that food safety certification. It's good for 5 years. You know, you renew it every 5 years. You know, and that basically covers you. So it shows that, yes, I have done the food safety course. You know, I know what I'm doing. And so that's kind of, you know, I think that's a lot, you know, it's a lot less unwieldy than being like, okay, you're selling, you know, multiple different recipes of canned goods on our site. So show us the paperwork for every recipe that you have certified. You know, I mean, rather than doing that, to be able for a producer to be able to just like one piece of paper to show to the farmers market manager, to show to, you know, customers, to show Department of Health, potentially, you know, to say, yes, here's, you know, here is the piece of paper that shows that I have, you know, done this course. That doesn't, you know, obviously, just because you have that piece of paper, I mean, like, you know, there are going to be certain foods that'll still be off limits. You cannot sell, you know, pressure processed, low acid canned goods under the home processed foods law, and you won't be able to. We're not, you know, you're not touching that. And actually under the food freedom laws in other states, I don't believe you can sell those products under those, you know, either, because it's just too much of a risk, you know, all the, you know, everybody's heard the botulism stories, and they're not pretty. So, you know, but yeah, I appreciate bringing that up in that discussion, Chris and Jeff, because I think, you know, that's a place where, you know, this you know, update could make it a heck of a lot easier, you know, in terms of just the paperwork and just knowing, okay, who can sell what. So I'll just stop in case there's any other questions. And I see, Michelle, your comment about the numbers on home processed vendors. Yeah, it's a tough one to get at. I mean, I think, you know, that'd be actually a great opportunity for some intern work, you know, and we've actually got at DRA a couple of folks, I think, who have been, you know, asking about internship possibilities. That, you know, that could be a really good piece of work for someone to do research on. And Sandra, I totally hear you about, you know, the need for safe food, but, you know, there needs to be consumer responsibility. And once again, like, you know, I mean, what the health department, you know, actually one of, you know, the folks there said to us is like, look, there is a, you know, I mean, you are buying foods that are processed in somebody's home, you know, and so there is a bit of buyer beware there. And, you know, yeah, if the Creamfield Danish isn't refrigerated, you know, not going to buy it. And I think that's where, you know, we want to talk about, if we're going to allow temperature controlled foods, then they have to be temperature controlled. You can't just like show up at the market, throw them on your table and be like, I can sell these. I mean, there are some things that, that you're responsible to do as a vendor. And then of course, customers do bear some responsibility as well in terms of like what they choose to buy and feel safe buying. So I know we're coming to the end of the time. So I don't know if there's any final questions or anything.
Yeah,
Okay.
Rebecca, a quick question.
Go ahead, Chase. Sure.
Yeah, so it sounds like from the unanimous support that the legislation had in 2010 and the reasonableness, I guess, of the proposals y'all are putting together, especially compared to the food freedom proposal, do you anticipate really having much pushback from legislators in the upcoming session, or does it seem like it'll be sort of a slam dunk if enough people are calling ahead? And
so Chase, and I'm chuckling because of course you're going to be taking on lobbying. So I think where we will probably get the most pushback is from the Retailers Association, because they have been, at least certainly with the food freedom laws, they've been very, protective of retailers, ability to, carry a certain kind of products that are not available at farmers markets and are not allowed under home processed foods. So I think that's, if I were to guess, I would say that's the most likely place that we will encounter resistance. But, you never know. And, that's part of like really building a coalition of folks to support, good, strong revisions that really work for producers.
One other thing, Rebecca, and this may have been covered, I didn't get to sit in on the whole thing, but has there been health issues with states that have passed food freedom laws due to the food freedom law? Do you know?
So there's actually been very few issues. And there was one that we were told about with in Minnesota regarding a norovirus outbreak from homemade frosted cookies, but it was actually not like a public market venue. It was a school hockey team where the school like bought the homemade cookies, and apparently like the day before she made them, the producer had a child who was very sick. And anyway, it was kind of gross and horrible. If anybody knows about norovirus and gone through food safety training, it was like, oh, that's terrible. But it's really been limited. I mean, you don't always know about an outbreak, especially if it's very small and, contained to just a couple of people. Maybe it's not been it's not been reported, but so far as we know, there's been very little issues with that. So
Thanks.
yeah, you're welcome. Well, so it is 9:02. I want to be conscious of people's time and the fact that you got like just a little bit of a break till the next session. So I just want to thank everyone, and please, feel free to get in touch with me if you have any questions or further thoughts on what we can do. So thanks.
All right, I'm going to get us started with a few general announcements, and then I'll be introducing this session. Good morning, everyone. I'm Christine Lang, Assistant Professor and Consumer Horticulture Extension Specialist based in Brookings. And I just want to remind everyone that after this session ends at 11:20 Central Time, There is a South Dakota Local Foods Coalition meeting at 11:30 a.m. and that link is in your program. And again, that's Central Time. And that will be a great spot to learn more about the South Dakota Local Foods Coalition. There will be representatives from our subcommittees, everything from branding to food sovereignty to farm updates on the farm to school work that's ongoing across the state. And then at 12:30 p.m. Central Time, South Dakota Specialty Producers Association is going to be holding a member meetup. So you are welcome to jump into that session, and that's going to be moderated by Cindy Tall. And the 11:30 session is going to be moderated by Carrie O'Neill. And again, both of those are going to be more meet and greets, visit, informal spots to connect and catch up with one another before we end our South Dakota Local Foods Conference. And it's my great pleasure to introduce this morning's session, Plants, Passions, and Problems. Colton and Alexis are two of our wonderful students here at South Dakota State University and both work with the Local Foods Education Center. Colton serves as an education intern and he is a senior in agricultural education with minors in ranch management. And his hometown is Rapid City. And also Colton is recently married. So congratulations, Colton. And Alexis Schmidt has served as the crew lead for the Local Foods Education Center and has been an invaluable member of the team, keeping a lot of things moving here on campus, both for the Local Food Center as well as for helping us with research support. And Alexis is also a senior. She's in agriculture leadership with minors in agronomy, horticulture, and sustainable local foods. And her hometown is Geneva, Nebraska, where her family farms has a corn soybean operation. So these are two of our busiest and best students, and I'm really sad to see both of them graduating, but I know we are going to see great things from both of them. So please join me in a virtual round of applause to welcome both Colton and Alexis this morning. And as you have questions for them, please feel free to type those in the chat and they will address those at the end of the session. So Colton and Alexis, the floor is yours.
Great. Well, thank you for that introduction. Yeah, so like she said, my background is not in plant science like Alexis, ranch management, animal science, actually. So kind of a funny story of how, I ended up on this team, and we'll kind of cover that later on. But so this is kind of the perspective from two SDSU students on a lot of different things, kind of what we've covered over the summer, and then our plans for taking things into our careers as we're going to get started. I have one semester left. Alexis just has a couple of weeks left. So that future isn't too far off, and that's getting a little scary for us, but we're excited to kind of share with you what we've been working on and some of our plans and projects that we've accomplished with SDSU. So we're going to give this a shot here and make sure it's going to work. If I can, there we go. So if you guys can go to polev.com, it should work on your phone, or you can text in also. Laptop works really good too. If you're having issues connecting, you can just send us whatever you would submit to the question in the chat, and one of us will make sure it gets submitted into there. This is just a way, since we're not in person, we can be a little bit more interactive. Teacher Colton is gonna pretend you guys are my students today. So be ready for that. There's no participation points though. If you need the join, it should be on the next slide here too. Maybe. So first one, just make sure it works. Where are you guys from? You can also text to join if that's a little easier for you. And answers should start popping us for us here soon. Yep, there we go. So these things are called word clouds. I love using these because the more answers that are the same, the bigger the word in the word cloud will become. So that'll kind of be a common theme as we go throughout the presentation. Give everybody just a couple more seconds here. So we've got some Wyoming, some South Dakotas. I know at least one Nebraska. Lake Norton, Sisseton. So we've got a good mix. That'll be important here in a second. But if you didn't get your answer in, don't worry. There'll be a couple other options or opportunities to do that. So So just like to start us off with kind of our mission at Local Foods. Like Dr. Lang said, Alexis and I were two of their interns this year. It was my first year joining. Alexis, do you want to share kind of how long you've been there?
Yeah, so I started in the fall of 2020. I worked throughout the fall and then in the spring. So I kind of did the background work behind this summer growing season.
So just wanted to start everybody off with kind of our mission. And this will be a common theme as we go out. So the Local Foods Education Center is really based on that foundation of student learning, the ecosystem sustainability, and consumer access to a safe, sustainable food supply. Each part of that mission statement, we've really kind of dove into in completely different ways. And like I said, we'll get into that here. If I can get my slides to go. So when I ask you guys where you're from, take a second, try to find your county or at least your state if you can, and just take a look at that for a second. So this map is from 2018. These numbers have changed a little bit, but not significantly enough to really make a huge kind of impact on what we're going to be talking about. So if you notice, the darker the color green down there at the bottom correlates to a percentage. And unfortunately, the darker the green, the more food insecure that county is. So when you look at South Dakota, there's a pretty good chunk of us that's in the dark green, which is something that we start all of our classes off at SDSU kind of learning about this big topic of food insecurity and food deserts. Some states have it worse than others, but every state at least has a little bit. So when we talk about that consumer access to safe and sustainable food in our mission statement, this is one of the first things that we saw. When you think about 30%, that number comes up pretty fast. So if you just dive into South Dakota, 95,080 people, that number has definitely increased in the last couple of years, are food insecure. And when you look at some of the percentages on the right about being above or below some different government thresholds, that's a big number. 95,000 people is a lot. When you dive into just Brookings County, 3,170 is a number that kind of pops up for that. That's my entire senior class at SDSU. That's a very significant number, especially when you start putting names and faces behind that. That's bigger than a lot of towns in South Dakota. So that's, when we see these numbers, it's one of those things that you just kind of have to do something about it. And that's the overall kind of mission of Local Foods is, make an impact here in Brookings, but more so prepare students and send them out back to wherever they're from, or help spread that message around to the community in any way we can to start addressing those numbers, because there is things that we can do about it, right? So in class, college especially, you're always going to have students that are just there for the grade, or there because it's just one elective they have to take and it's not something they're passionate about, right? The very least, I get students, with one Google search, farmers markets near me. That's a starting point. Like I said, I came in my background, ranch management, animal science. I think we maybe have 10 acres of corn that we tried this last year. So won't claim to be a farmer at all. But anybody can start. And that's kind of the cool thing about Local Foods this summer is we had a big team of all kinds of different students. So these are some pictures from the last couple of years. Alexis can speak to this too about the different skill sets that team members have. Some of us have hundreds of hours on tractors running equipment, and some people have picked up a weed whacker for the first time with us this summer. So really, when we say that Local Foods is for any students to get that hands-on knowledge, it really is. It becomes an outdoor classroom. So excited to kind of share that a little bit too. Alexis, do you want to kind of talk about some of our locations and what our farms look like?
Yeah, so Local Foods is kind of spread out throughout 5 different locations. We are located on one of the old research farms. We are still growing pumpkins out there and then taking care of some of the grapes and old research that Dr. Fennell had out there. And then our newest location is a specialty crop site. We just planted pumpkins out there and some flowers to try to kind of get an idea of what our new location is going to be, since the research farm is not currently ours anymore. And so we're transitioning into specialty crop and seeing how the pumpkin development will happen and what we can continue to do. We'll talk about the pumpkins a little bit later. We have a crazy operation that we've been doing this last year, and it's been for many years. And then at Local Foods, we have a 1.2 acre student-run farm. It's really a large show garden, basically, is what we pride ourselves in taking. We have a high tunnel on site right now, and it's movable. So we were actually able to move it this summer to a new location just to kind of help with soil remediation. We can use it for about 4 years and then we move it, or use it extensively for about 4 years and then we move it. And then we have all sorts of different things that are going on. It's really an experimental site for everybody to learn. I know there's some potato trials out there, some tomatoes, just kind of all sorts of different things that are going on at Local Foods. It's really the student aspect of how are we teaching our students to continue to change the local foods industry. And then another one of our sites this summer was out at Good Roots Farm and Garden. We helped them plant pumpkins for their fall festival and just kind of helped with that because we also got to learn about the agrotourism aspect that they run out there. They redid one of their old barns and used it as a wedding venue, event venue. And so we got to learn about the agrotourism while planting pumpkins out there. And then our fifth site is inside the greenhouses. We have different traditional and non-traditional growing systems in there that we will be talking about later as well.
Right, and the coolest thing is it's right on campus. So if you guys have been lucky enough to come visit us out there, it's within walking distance, which is awesome. We're one of the only schools that has those kind of resources that close. And as far as like the future teacher side, being able to plan to actually go hands-on to the research areas and do that stuff has been an awesome resource. So this is something I hope you guys are all familiar with now, just the general local foods movement. So when we first started learning about that and kind of combined it with that food insecurity map that we saw earlier, this is really kind of like our fuel for what we do. So we know that there's the big increase for healthy food from a known source that's self-reliant. We've worked a little bit this year, and something I'm kind of interested into. It's just trying to figure out how many people are starting their gardens for the first time or starting to grow things for the first time. Because of the pandemic, I'm sure you guys have seen, been hard to buy seeds at the store. There's shortages of stuff. So that drive for the self-reliant and resilient food networks has been really important. So those couple things and a few others are really kind of the driving factors behind what we do. And ultimately, it's always good to promote and sustain local economies as well. And anytime you can have a cultural impact is a cool thing too. There's a lot of ways that we can get people to really kind of buy into the whole local foods movement when you can tie it to cultures and really, go from just having a couple pieces that connect to kind of a big, web in a sense. So we have another question that pops up here. We want to know, what is experimental learning? What are your thoughts? You can text it in. Again, you can send it in the chat, or if you've joined on the website, go ahead and send those in too. And we should see some common themes popping up here. No tests. I like that one. I'm currently student teaching in a high school right now. We have a couple different agri-science classrooms, and the no test thing is just like my students. So outside of traditional learning, I like that one too. Real world, trying to find out mistakes, trial and error. Really kind of one of the first things we're introduced to in some of the HORT programs that I've taken is this idea of experimental learning, of the trial and error side. We don't know what's going to happen, so let's find out. And I really like that because it gives students something that they can buy into. That curiosity is the best fuel there. So we'll talk about some of the experience we've done. These are two of our other coworkers that helped with a lot of the pumpkin stuff, Joe and Ellie. We had a whole team of other students too. We have a picture of them somewhere else. So don't want you guys to think that it was just the four of us. We had a whole team of students that were able to accomplish things here this year. But so this is my picture of experimental learning. It's at one of the farms on the zero turn mower. The question that I had in my head was, this looks kind of muddy. Nope, the tires are big. We can float right over that, and we can't. So the experiment that we learned is how do you get a lawnmower out of the mud without getting other things stuck? So some of those themes about making mistakes, the trial and error are some of those good experiences. But Alexis can kind of talk about some of our other experiments and things that we've started working on earlier this year.
Yeah, so we worked on both non-traditional growing methods and traditional growing methods. So on that right picture, you see that we have some sweet corn growing. This summer, we tried to plant sweet corn in our hydroponic system. So hydroponics, if you're not familiar with it, is a soilless growing system. You can see the white that our corn is in. It's actually perlite, and so the corn gets the nutrients from what we put in the water. So we have fertilizers that are liquid based that we add into our water, and then it's constantly getting watered, and that's where you get the hydroponic term from. So our experiment was, can we grow sweet corn hydroponically? And the answer is yes, because we did successfully harvest about 4 ears off of the sweet corn, which is super awesome. They were only about 6 inches long and maybe had half the germination rate that they were supposed to, but we got sweet corn. So that was a super cool experiment that we were working on. And then like Colton said earlier, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say the whole point of experimental learning isn't necessarily arriving at like the correct outcome. It's the whole process of just getting to an outcome and then being able to learn from there.
Yeah, definitely. We definitely learned that sweet corn can grow hydroponically. Not super successful, but maybe we can tweak that in the future too. And then, like Colton said earlier, there's a whole Mod Podge of us that were working. I think there's about 10 of us on the crew, and we come from all sorts of different backgrounds. I was fortunate enough to have 4 under me, with 3 of them or 2 of them having big ag backgrounds. So we were able to run tractors kind of efficiently, and it was great to be able to just tell somebody to go out to the field and till, and not have to worry about them not knowing what a tractor is and how to run a tractor. But then on top of that, we were also able to teach the other ones how to run the tractors or run tillers or run weed whackers and mowers. And not everybody has that experience, and we don't, it's a learning experiment. It's learning, everybody's constantly learning. And so if you're not comfortable running it, we have people that can run them, but we also want to teach you how to do it. So at this summer, we really tried to emphasize the learning aspect behind what's going on with all of these different pieces of equipment as well. And so, like I said, we had traditional, non-traditional methods, and then we also had the traditional methods. So this spring, I worked on taking soil samples and developing plans for remediation of the soil. So fun fact, local foods, the soil that was actually brought in to plant was used from the Dana J. Dyke House football stadium renovation. So when they actually started groundwork on that, they brought the soil over to local foods, and that was their way of sustainably using the soil. And so they brought it over to us, said, here's your soil that you're going to use. Fun fact, not very great soil, have had nutrients issues for many, many years. So we took some soil samples this spring and developed a plan. We took some organic matter from the Brookings landfill, and we added quite a few truckloads on this spring to just try and get it worked into the ground and see if we could get better results. And then on that right, we spent a lot of time with experiments and research. We did a lot of work for Dr. Lang and her research tomatoes. That's a picture of one of the things that we were doing. We were harvesting a lot of tomatoes at one point in time. Between tomatoes and pumpkins, we were kind of crazy busy for a while. And then we also worked with Dr. Fennell and her grape research. We've been pruning her grapes for the last couple weeks. And then Dr. Perkins, we did a little bit of work for her and some sweet corn trials that they were doing, as well as native grasses. So it's just that constant research aspect of it as well. We get a little bit of a taste of our data has to be exact, and the things that we gather, we need to know what we're doing and kind of take the notes behind what we're doing as well.
Yep, a good mix of the formal research side and then also the, I don't know, let's find out what happens.
Definitely.
My favorite, pumpkins.
Yeah, so this summer we planted a lot of pumpkins. So our supervisor, Brett, has the goal every year of every child in Brookings or the Brookings area has a pumpkin in their possession. It was a family tradition behind them, and I guess it's just always stuck. And so Brett has made it his goal to continue that tradition of having a pumpkin for everybody. And so this spring we planted 18,275 seeds. My crew did not like me at all after that was done. It took about 2 weeks. We started in the late May 21st, I think was our first day. And we planted for a couple weeks solid, planting all over the place. We planted 26 different varieties, anywhere from large pumpkins such as Champion down to minis with the whites and ornamental and decorative, and you name it, we probably planted it because why not? The goal, like I said, was to produce enough pumpkins for every kid in Brookings and Brookings area. We did produce enough. I don't know if we distributed to every kid in Brookings, but we definitely did produce enough for every kid. Some of the sites that we donated to were like the Boys and Girls Club, the Harvest Table, the GAP program, Lake Benton area schools, Lake Benton Bakery, the President's House. Some of the pumpkins that you see out in front of President Dunn's house, those came from us as well. And so then on the other side of that, we were also focused on vegetable production. So we had a kitchen manager, Jen, and Jen is in the middle there. Jen took all of the harvest that we did and washed it, and she's actually food safety certified. So she was trying to teach us how to properly wash and prepare vegetables to go out for donation. So all of our produce that we produce is donated back to the community, which is community stewardship in our eyes, which we will talk about here in a little bit as well. But all of it was just donated back to the community. And so you can see some of the tomatoes and stuff that we picked. Ellie right there is picking cherries, I think. Kind of looks like that. And then in that picture on the right, we're looking at tomatoes, all of our tomato harvests that we pulled that one day. We had about 4,600 pounds that we harvested that we took data on. Once school started, we kind of got a little crazy and just started picking things and donating them without actually taking data because we were kind of crazy. And so we don't have exact data on what we were shooting for, but it was about, I would say, over 5,000 pounds of produce that we donated back to the community this fall or summer and fall.
I think that was probably one of my favorite things too about the summer is just seeing the excitement in everybody getting to harvest, especially when harvest was first getting started. We're like, oh, look, the tomatoes are getting ready, or the cucumbers are ripe, or watching the watermelon grow and just thinking, you're so curious about how the watermelon is going to taste and what it looks like. And then also when you can turn around and have this huge basket of cherries, and there were multiple ones of those, to try to find stuff to do, because when you have 500 pounds of grapes, the Brookings community can only eat so many. So we had to find some other cool things to do. And we'll come up or share some of those here in a little bit. But like Alexis said, community stewardship is one of those practices in our mission statement that we talked about. So we want to know what does community stewardship mean to you? So again, you guys can send in the chat or any way that you have been. Seems like it's been working okay. But what does community stewardship mean to you? Give about another minute here. But those common themes, like I said, connection, service, here we go, bettering, change, engagement, connection. If you submitted multiple words or a sentence, sometimes it'll jumble it up, but we can still kind of get the good kind of vibe of what it's saying here. So community stewardship, it's going to mean something different to everybody. We've had quite a few different classes or lectures where we really dive into this topic about what does it mean to be a good steward of your community, and also looking at different ways that you can do that, right? So Alexis talked about how not everyone on our team came from a big ag background or a horticulture background even, but we were all still able to kind of work as that team at Local Foods to produce foods. If you dive into that even deeper when you talk about community supported ag, or a lot of those other topics where you have business owners, providing, window front space to post, gardening lessons, or the planter boxes outside their building or alongside their parking lots to grow food in or have people use those. You have your graphic designer, people that can help creating some of those marketing materials, or even signs that say, hey, when our tomatoes look like this, please leave them alone. But when they look like this, pick it, take it home. Here's how to cook it, on little signs right out there. Even people that are retired, you're the ones with the time. We can have, you guys help, even just supervise if they're not able to be on the ground or sorry, the cat's going crazy over here on something, but the joys of working from home, right? So the community stewardship, really anybody can buy into it. We heard a saying once, like, if you eat, you're in. That's so true. Skill sets from every sort. Really, food is the thing that joins us all together. So that community of just being people is enough to hopefully get people involved. So we've spoke a lot about that this summer and really tried to make it work. So these are some past numbers from years, just about tons of food that we've produced. This year, we weren't quite able to meet that season goal of 35 tons overall produced. We're still trying to get some of those numbers finalized because we still have some harvest coming up. But those are some pretty impressive numbers when you think about just coming out of the Brookings community by kind of a ragtag bunch of students. So when we talked about some of those more traditional and non-traditional methods, when we started our year, a lot of the focus was on more traditional ag. Then it turned out that a lot of us had interest in kind of that more non-traditional or some of those newer growing methods. So we were able to put together a tour. We went all the way through Minnesota to Wisconsin. I might be missing a couple other states in between. That whole area of the country is a little foggy, being from Rapid. But so we got to go to quite a few different hydroponic growers from all different sorts. So this was one of the first ones we visited in Minnesota. It's called Barry's Cherries. That's Barry there opening the door. Joe and I got to sample some of the produce. It was a lot of fun, and we got to learn a ton about the horticulture industry and just different ways that it's taken from a small scale or a greenhouse setting to this guy's livelihood, and then some other sides of things that are really interesting too about how he ties the fish farm that Barry's Cherries is actually on, how that ties into the food production. I'm a big fan of including diversity in your farm as far as crop rotations, adding livestock, working with Mother Nature rather than against it. So some cool things there. Walking into this greenhouse, it was nice and chilly in the morning. It gave us a chance to warm up, but also gave us a really cool opportunity to see between the basil and the lettuce. I think he also had some tomatoes growing in here. He produces tons and tons of lettuce a year, all out of this one greenhouse. And he's really got the whole system narrowed down. We were able to learn a ton about how he manages nutrients, water flows, getting really specific to things like pH, electrical conductivity, even water temperature, salinity, like all kinds of different things, how you can measure it to know what nutrients the plants are using with where they're at in their growth cycles and whatnot. I think he also had some peppers growing too. And as we went along, you just pulling stuff off, letting us taste it. I think a big misconception with hydroponics is just that the food never tastes as good. In this tour, in our experience, if somebody handed me a traditional garden grown tomato and then one of the ones that Barry's grew hydroponically, I don't know if I could tell you the difference. So it was just really cool to get to see. We also got to go to some more modern ones. Barry's greenhouses were still gravel floors and whatnot. This place was very cool. It's called Kairos. I'm pretty sure this one was in Minnesota as well. Alexis, correct me if I'm wrong, but this one switched
on the edge of Wisconsin. I think we're still in Wisconsin in that one.
Okay. This one was really cool. State of the art. These are called like the Kairos is the business that we were at. They do the same thing, growing a ton of lettuce, but they do it in these vertical kind of tower systems, climate controlled buildings. Each one of these is on its own separate unit. So they can get very specific on nutrient solutions to varieties of lettuce, basil, herbs and things like that. So got to see some cool different ones there, and also learn, airflow is something that they talked a lot about in, some of the big greenhouses. Well, this place was able to manage airflow in these systems without using a ton of extra power. So really, it's just a little fountain pump inside the reservoir tanks and the light. So you can run a lot of these systems, produce a ton of food without a ton of electrical costs. So really kind of seeing too, like natural, this one could be grown anywhere in a basement or, in a greenhouse, because it blocks out a lot of that natural light. It's kind of its own closed system. So when we came,
go back to that one, and they were really big on the sustainability aspect of it. That was actually an old office building, and they really prided themselves in turning that into a different type of growing method, as well as using some sort of vacant area to create a better thing for their town. They sold to about 4 or 5 different grocery stores in their town, and they were just super excited that they could provide that opportunity for their community members as well.
Yeah, and year round, which is something really cool to be able to get fresh stuff that close. In a blizzard, you could go pick a salad. I think that's cool no matter where you're at, but really, really neat thing. So after all that, we came back and we were fueled by that curiosity. So we wanted to try a couple different things out. So we got a few different ebb and flow systems set up, some aquaponic stuff here with some koi. We've also experimented with some smaller fish tanks. That's still stuff that we're playing with, we're learning as we go, because it turns out there's not a ton of resources. You kind of have to do some digging and some experimenting, because every system, especially when you create it out of used materials, PVC pipe, water, like livestock stock tanks, recycled materials that we find, that's where some more of that sustainability comes in. You can see though, we're starting to get successful crops. We've got some basil there, some different types of lettuce, some peppers. No huge bumper crops of anything, but it's cool. And seeing the plants thrive or grow even is enough kind of fuel for that curiosity to keep us wanting to experiment. Well, how can we make this better? What can we do more? There's a lot of different things. So the tinfoil there, we learned algae can be a big issue, even if the hoses are out of direct light from the LED lights there. So experimenting, maybe black tubing would have been better. How much humidity do we need, soak times, light cycles, light intensity of seedlings, whether or not seeds start in the hydroponic system or if you transplant from a different misting bench, you name it. There's a ton of different variables that we've been trying to play with. This picture, the lighting looks weird, but there's actually a HID bulb above that, and we grew cut flowers. Alexis, you know a little bit more about this one.
Yeah, so this spring we trialed out some cut flowers, experimental learning once again. We didn't know if cut flowers in hydroponic systems were going to work or not. You can see we have some zinnias. The taller ones are mini sunflowers, and then the left other plants are marigolds. And we were just experimenting to see if they would thrive in a hydroponic system as well as under HID lights. HID lights typically run a little bit hotter. One day I walked in and the temperature was reading about 90 degrees. And so my cut flowers weren't very happy because it was a little hot under the light. And so we figured out that HID lights aren't our answer to what we want to try and grow, as we like to grow a little bit lettuce and a little bit more cool season crops instead of under the 90-degree weather. We did get some really beautiful blooms. I don't think they made them on the PowerPoint, but we had some awesome blooms and the cut flowers looked really, really good. So we did learn that you can grow cut flowers hydroponically. So we also obtained a food pod. It's under some research behind the government is researching if solar panels can run food pods. So what a food pod is basically a refrigerated semi-trailer that has a hydroponic system in it. Like you can see a picture on the right, we finally got the lights up and rolling. We just obtained permission or access to the food pod. There's about 4 of us that are working on it currently right now. It had been down for a couple months, but now we're getting rolling on it again. I think that they're going to start seeding on Monday again, so hopefully we can start getting some more produce out of there. The goal is to have about 100 pounds of lettuce harvested each week. And obviously we haven't been doing that, but hopefully we can get that back up and rolling and get that back, the lettuce provided back out to the community as well.
Yeah, and it's a good example of how we go from using recycled materials to having very state of the art, industry leading technology. So we get kind of a good mix of both of those. The food pod has a ton of moving pieces as far as like automated dosing of nutrients, the CO2 generators, temperature controls. We're really practicing a lot of biosecurity this year, so we're looking at different entry systems. That's something that's interested me quite a bit from the animal science side. A lot of those swine barns, your poultry barns, turkeys, even some of the dairy systems have very intense kind of entry procedures to maintain kind of that biosecurity. So we're looking at those kind of two worlds colliding for me, and ensuring a safer product and better harvest because of it. So really tying in a lot of different aspects of campus, which is cool, and something I'm really excited about. We've also got some other really cool projects that we've been able to experience that aren't necessarily as far in the works as the food pod or what we're doing at Local Foods, but just some of those kind of things that really kind of feed that curiosity. So Alexis was kind of the lead on this. So
yeah, so we were able to work out West River a couple times. I went out a couple times, and then I took my crew out a couple times as well to explore the options of maybe helping fight food insecurity by exploring the bunker situation. Out West River, there's a bunch of old Army munition bunkers. As you can see, there's a whole slew of them. I can't remember how many there are out there, but there are just crazy amount of them. And so they're just kind of sitting out there. And so we're wondering if the sustainability aspect of it is, can we produce something different in these kind of bunkers, because they stay about 70 degrees year round, because they're about a foot thick of concrete. And so they're very temperature stable, and just the issue of lighting and water and different aspects, not a lot of ventilation, because munition bunkers, you were building bombs or something in it. So you don't really want a whole lot of air inside, but you can just see that there's a whole landscape of them. And out West River, there is more of a food insecurity issue. And so is there a way that we can explore these opportunities to maybe help fight that food insecurity a little bit better without having to create a whole new system and whole new ways of growing, especially with the soil being not as ideal for other things as well.
Yeah, and from the education standpoint on that, like, the trip out there from Brookings is about a 6.5 hour drive or so. Driving through Wisconsin, touring all these other farms, we had a lot of time to just kind of sit in the car, get to know each other, hang out. We had a lot of fun too, but just sit and brainstorm, like, well, what if we do this? Well, what if we run an ebb and flow system? And then questions come up. There was just a question in chat about cost effectiveness. That's something that we've been trying to explore too, doing cost analysis on almost all the projects that we run, to try to figure out, like, outside of research and kind of that experimental learning, how viable of an option is this? We talked about having power as an issue to these bunkers, and potentially tying in solar to pump water, to a top reservoir, and have some kind of gravity flow system that floods every, hour and a half to an ebb and flow system. And then we change, well, what if instead of having an ebb and flow system, we look at just deep water culture, hydroponics, just to see if we don't have to have as much power. And then the question comes up, well, what about lighting? And, we look at wind and all kinds of different things as far as generators go and that and whatnot. So for right now, where we're at as the student side or as undergrads, we haven't really dove into a ton of, having a complete plan or here's exactly what we would put into these bunkers. It's more so like, what kind of questions do we need to ask? What sort of things do we need to be thinking about? What other aspects outside of just, can we grow it hydroponically? Do we have to ask? So a lot of different things to be thinking about there. But that's where we want help from you guys. So if you were 20 years old again, or you're about our age, what advice would you give to yourself? What can future producers do to succeed? Alexis and I both work with high school students, or she teaches or TAs for some of the intro level hort classes as well. And we can pass that advice on to people that are younger than us even. So let's say college freshmen or even high schoolers, what advice would you give to them, or what advice can we pass along to the people that we have an influence over? So these answers will come up in short answer responses. So you can type full sentences without problem. Right now, the first one that popped up on my screen here is pace yourself. That is one that we are learning our senior year, especially, and in the classroom as well. Like, we have these problems. We see that there's 95,000 people in South Dakota that need help with food. If we can help with one of those, that's made an impact. And just trying to meet people with where they're at, and pacing yourself is something that we all struggle with a little bit, because there is a big problem. We're trying to fix it. Explore alternative markets, know your target audience. I think that's a great answer too. Don't be afraid to try all the gardening projects you want. I'm a big fan of having a lot of little things going on at once. And I think we've really done that this summer between helping with some of those research projects, raising all of those pumpkins, taking some of these tours, some of these trips, looking at these complex kind of problems. But don't worry about how everyone else does it. That's definitely something we learned this summer too, of, well, typically for an ebb and flow system, you have this, or a nutrient film hydroponics system. It runs like this. And we look and we say, well, here's what we have. Can we make this work? Using recycled gutters or screens, or, well, Amazon can't deliver, this piece that we need for 2 weeks, or we can't find it. How can we make it? Just being resourceful. Good mentors. I think that's an awesome example too. Alexis and I and our crew, I'm sure they've already started thinking about, who can come into Local Foods next year, what advice can we leave for them. So I like all of these. And we'll keep those recorded. And I think that's a good thing that everybody can think about, because it's never too late to take more advice, I guess. So thank you for submitting those. So like we said, we're future focused. Alexis, do you want to talk about some of what you've been doing with the Hort 111?
Yeah, so part of my agricultural leadership major is I have a capstone of a leadership project that is making a difference in some aspect of somebody's life. And so I decided to teach the Hort 111 kids, which is Introduction to Horticulture class here at SDSU, about the difference in hydroponics and what non-traditional growing systems that we have on campus. And so it's been a 3 or 4 week project that we've been doing. We started a system here and we've been growing lettuce. And so I taught the kids how to start the seeds, what kind of systems they are. We learned how to test the pH and just all sorts of different things. This week, we're going to go in and fertilize everything. And then the whole aspect of community stewardship comes back, where when we harvest the lettuce, it'll get donated back to the community. And so it'll just be that full cycle of, we get to see what's growing, but we also get to have the impact of being able to donate back to the community, and just seeing how much of an impact it makes. I mean, it feels like we aren't donating a whole lot, but I always remember taking food to the food pantry and just seeing the smiles on these people's faces, that they just accept what we bring with such gracious hearts. And they're just super excited that they can add something new to the food box, or just something that way. And so just being able to start that project, but then being able to make the full cycle of it. And so just being able to teach that, and being able to hopefully continue to do that throughout the future as well.
Definitely. Like I said, my background wasn't very strong with farming or horticulture at all. But finding ways to tie that in to what I do know. Like I said, adding livestock rotations on different things, or incorporating fish into aquaponics, working with Mother Nature rather than against it, and like just being in the classroom, helping people, or even doing presentations like these will make us stronger, educators or people that can make an impact in the future. So, when we look at what we've donated at Local Foods, or the projects that we've started, or the questions that we ask, really try to look kind of deeper than the surface there, and just know that the impacts that our other coworkers and our educators and ourselves have had go a lot farther than horticulture. And really that community stewardship is a common theme that I know we've brought up multiple times, because it really has made an impact on us, and we're really interested. So this is one of the greenhouse bays that Alexis was working with a project on. We kind of adapted this idea from some that we found online, some that we found on some of those hydroponic tours. But really, it's just a 6-foot long piece of gutter, a 5-gallon tub, and a little fountain pump. You could build a whole system for under $50 pretty easily. And then some if you use the same nutrients as us. And we've had really good success growing stuff in them. We had tons and tons of basil earlier this year, so much that we didn't know what to do with all of it. So we made a bunch of pesto, hydroponic peas, lettuce. It looks like they're trying to grow some different types of produce in them as well. But the cool thing is each system runs on its own. So if you wanted to trial, a bunch of different things as a class, you could. You don't have to zero in on one question. I built one of these systems this summer. It has 2 rows of gutters on it. So we have 12 plants that we can be growing at a time, runs off one single tub. And I'm actually getting that set up right now with a 10th grade fundamental horticulture class at the high school where I'm student teaching. So I got to play around with it, kind of learn a little bit about them, just enough to be dangerous, and then kind of pass that along, like continue kind of like being curious about this. Here's something cool you can look at, and getting that process started right there in the classroom, because these can run anywhere. They don't have to be in a greenhouse system, and it doesn't take a whole lot of supplemental lighting to make them run, or power, just one outlet in this case for the fountain pump. So some cool kind of very simple, cheap options of just trying to play around with that experimental learning. Like I said, when we had surplus foods, we all had our own little personal garden plots too, so we could play around with different produce, or just, we really like pickles, so we grew a whole bunch of cucumbers and whatnot. And we did a lot of these things as a team. Even outside of work, we found ourselves kind of hanging out with each other. So not all of these took place during the workday, but they got to use some of the things we've been working hard to grow throughout the summer. So jam, jelly, Alexis and the pumpkin ice cream, I think, is a really cool story. Making pies. The animal science side of me said, well, nobody's ever gotten to make brats before, so we're going to make brats and then have a grill out. So we kind of started moving away from the produce side, but when we think about local foods as a whole, that can come back to a lot of things outside of just, what we can grow. So we use local pork. We made some brats, local cheese. So that was kind of a neat project. But Alexis, do you want to talk about your pumpkin ice cream? Because I'd never heard of that before.
Yeah, so I don't know. I have a homemade ice cream machine, like one of those really old ones that makes really loud noises and everything. So I don't know. I've made ice cream throughout the summer and really enjoyed doing it. And so we had a lot of pumpkins this fall, and a lot of them were food pumpkins. So I'm like, okay, is there a way that we can turn this pumpkin into ice cream and make it that way? So I found a recipe online, cooked up the pumpkin, kind of made it more pumpkin-y and pumpkin pie-ish kind of a thing, and then mixed it into my ice cream, and we had pumpkin ice cream, and we enjoyed it quite often because there was a lot of it.
Yeah, but just kind of a cool thing, like, experiences that we can take back, whether or not you're able to share those with the community. Like, I never made jelly or jam before, and now that's something that, like, if we find a bunch of strawberries on sale, I'm definitely going to take them and make jam, and just ways that you can kind of help be the consumer of that local food market, more than just having local produce, because you can only eat so many grapes, so many cherries, so much lettuce a week. So just experimenting with different methods in that sense that we can do. I know we're getting fairly close to time. We want to make sure we have time for questions, but overall, just having that kind of lifelong learning mindset is something that we really hope we can express to the students that we work with, or to the people that see these presentations. Just keep asking yourself those curious questions, challenging your brain. The big problems like the bunkers, how do we grow here? How do we grow that? How do we do this? Just asking those questions, even if it's something really big, because you can always start chipping away at it. practicing community stewardship, and putting your passion to plants. I think that's something that unites a lot of people, and it's something that can bring people together that didn't necessarily know, how severe the food insecurity is, or how big of an impact you can make with such little kind of progress. So we just wanted to end here with one final question. What would you like to see the next generation of agriculturalists prepared for? Don't feel like this question has to stay within produce or even local foods, but what sort of things would you like us to ask as questions or as students? We can bring these up in classes. We can do them with my high schoolers. We can talk about it in Hort 111. We can start kind of spreading that message. And I hope that when you guys are out in the community doing things as well, you can take some of these messages to and start kind of dispersing them as well. So we can think back to that first question. We've got a lot of different people from a lot of different states. And once we start spreading that impact, we can really make a difference.
And I think
So-
that since our futures are dependent on teaching, I mean, we both kind of have that aspect of going back and teaching. So how can we change that, and how can we make that impact on somebody else's life as well?
Definitely. So I'll leave this screen up. I know we got a couple questions. We can start asking some of those.
And I can help send those your way. So one of the first, I'm gonna flip the order of these. So a question from Karen for either of you to answer. Do you have the tools to test your soil on site, or do you still need to send the soil off site for the samples you collected, Alexis?
Yeah, so Dr. Lang, we sent those in with you. I'm not 100% sure where they ended up going.
So I can expand on that. We did send those samples to a private soil testing lab for quick results. We do have equipment and resources in some of our soil science labs here at SDSU, but sometimes when we have massive amounts of samples, even as a university, it is cost effective for us to send those out. And as many of the folks on the call may be aware, SDSU, we don't have a public facing soil testing lab anymore, but other universities such as North Dakota State and the University of Minnesota still do offer soil testing services as well for a reasonable price. So I think the next question is from Jeff. And Jeff, feel free to clarify if I misrepresent this question. Do many from your group, so I'm guessing Jeff means as students, do many of you as students belong to the South Dakota Specialty Producers Association? And then he's curious specifically what you think of their website or if you've interacted with it. So I think just looking for some feedback on the association.
Yes, that's correct. You have it correct, I guess. Just wondering what you think about the website kind of as a resource for specialty producers, and if you guys know about it and what you think of it, I guess, if you do know about it.
So wondering on next generation outreach, aren't we? Go ahead, Alexis.
Personally, I have not interacted with the website. This is the first time hearing about it, so I will make a note of it and check it out. I'm looking for any and all resources, so I will definitely check it out as well.
I can't say for certain that I've been on it before. It sounds really familiar. Kind of like Alexis, I'm always like digging for resources what I can pull to bring into some of the classes, even if it's just for like a one question bell ringer activity at the beginning of the day. So yeah, like Alexis, I'll take a look, and that's one thing, like this question here, maybe just community awareness that we can bring back and just say, here's a list of websites that are South Dakota specific or your region specific that can help you out. So we'll make sure I'll add that to the list.
Oh, well, thanks for answering that. And I guess I just bring up the question because we're always looking to improve things on the SPA for short website. And I don't know if Chris is on, she could give a real quick rundown of it, but it's got all of the farmers markets, most of the specialty producers and their location, what they grow, on maps and in graphs and charts. So it's a pretty good resource for people looking to buy specialty products, and also for specialty producers looking to sell to the public, kind of thing. So check it out if you can.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We'll definitely share that with Brett too, because I know throughout the local foods class, there are some challenges of seeing if we can consume a local foods diet for about 2 weeks. And so if we have more options to complete that challenge, it'll be awesome to do that as well as supporting our local producers.
So Alexis, now you know I'm going to ask, can you and Colton expand on the local foods diet challenge? What are the rules and how did you do?
I did pretty well. It kind of helped that I kind of expanded some of my definition into back home so I could get some home produced beef. But basically the local foods challenge is each semester Brett has a local foods class, and we have to come up with our own definition of local foods and what local foods means to us. And then we have to put that into action by completing the challenge. So it's a 2-week challenge of trying to consume as much locally produced products as you can. And so there's some people that local foods to them means 250 miles from here, and which in my case it kind of was, because that was home for me. And so I was able to support those local producers back home. But then it also gave me the opportunity to come back here to Brookings and support like Gilkerson's Gardens, or go over to Wishbone Market here in Brookings and get some turkey, or just different products that we could consume locally, and just put a real aspect into my mind of, wow, these producers are here. They are providing a lot of different aspects of what our meals could consume, or what we could consume in our meals, and just kind of gives us that, like, hey, can we not go to Walmart and buy this pizza? Instead, can we make it from scratch, or can we buy the stuff that we have from locally produced stuff as well?
All right. Are there other questions for Colton and Alexis? And I was just going to clarify that the Brett that has been referenced several times is Brett Owens, the director of the SDSU Local Foods Education Center. Colton and Alexis, do you have a slide by chance with your contact information? So if people, want to ask more questions about the Local Foods Education Center, or get perspectives from you as students, do you have that information, or could you put it in the chat for folks?
And we can definitely throw it in the chat. Our social media presence is just at SC State Local Foods. That's a great way to see more pictures and reach out to local foods specifically. But I'm sure both of us would love emails with questions, or for us to come speak to other people in that sense, because we really enjoy the community outreach side of things as well, if we haven't kind of made that obvious. But so we put both of our emails in the chat here. Those are our school emails, so that's the best way to reach us. But
awesome. All right. And you're getting lots of appreciation. People are grateful for the information. And I agree with Dr. Roto Burrows. As I said in the beginning, I know the two of you are going to do great things and have a great impact. So I'll just, as we're wrapping up today, again, I really want to thank Colton and Alexis for sharing the next generation perspective with us. And since I see two people in this Zoom room, I would just like to express my appreciation to Lindsay Gerard and Evan Berg, who have quietly been in the background throughout the conference the last 2 days. They are members of the SDSU Extension Educational Technology team and have done a fantastic job of keeping this meeting going and making sure we had Zoom polls and chat features and we could see and hear everything. So thank you to our technology team members. And for the next few minutes, we are going to have a brief break. And then the next thing that's happening at 11:30 a.m. Central Time, feel free to tune back in with us and learn more about the South Dakota Local Foods Coalition, which is really working to bring groups together, including our next generation perspective. I know Brett Owens is a member of the coalition, and kind of getting to that, how do we build even more community and amplify our efforts working on local foods in South Dakota? So again, thank you, Colton and Alexis, and you are welcome to join the Local Foods Coalition discussion. We'd love to have your perspective at the table, and the link for that is in your program. And see you in a few minutes. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Have a great have a great afternoon.
Thank you,
Bye.
guys.
Thank you.
The coalition really has kind of ebbed and flowed for over 10 years, well over 10 years. We started with the name of the South Dakota Local Foods Collaborative many years ago, and we have evolved. We just really reorganized after or during, I guess, the pandemic in the last couple years, and we keep adding new members, which is really exciting. We talked the first meeting that we had last summer in person about how the pandemic seems to really have helped us to decide we need to band together and we need to really focus on a local foods movement in South Dakota. If you were just in Anna Barr's presentation about farm to school, you learned that South Dakota is at the bottom of the 50 states as far as using farm to school in our state. So there's a lot of work we can do. And I think at the first meeting that we all came together, we decided we really need to do this work together. There's a lot of separate entities, but we're all focused on how important we think local foods production and marketing is to our economy, and how important it is to be food secure and be able to have food sovereignty in our state. So that's kind of why we really have re-energized in the past year. And we've decided that we wanted to have some work groups that really were focused on some of the challenges that we could see with local foods initiatives and places where we could make a difference in the state. So I believe the first time we met this year was in May. So we've done quite a bit of work actually since then. And I'm gonna paste into the chat box a place where you can look at some of our documents that we've been working at. Oh, that isn't even it. Sorry about that. But maybe while I'm typing some things into the chat box, if those of you who have been a part of the coalition just want to say who you are and what entities you're representing, and then the new people will kind of know who's been meeting so far. Don't be shy.
I can say I'm Anna Barr. Carrie just mentioned the Farm to School Field Specialist for Extension, but I've been working on the Farm to School subcommittee.
Thanks, Anna. Anyone else?
I'm Laura Kaler. I've been just started, May was my first meeting, but I've been working with South Dakota Specialty Producers Association. And then for the subcommittee, I've been working on Anna's with the Farm to School.
This is Matt West. I work for Dakota Rural Action, and I've been working with the subcommittee connecting producers with state and federal programming. So looking at double up bucks and EBT and SNAP.
Hi, this is Lily. I also work with Dakota Rural Action, and I'm on the Farm to School subcommittee.
My name is Annie Mullen. I'm with Coteau Community Market, a food co-op getting started in Watertown. I'd actually participated in 2018 in the stuff then, and kind of got lost in the shuffle of things to do. So I was excited to see that there was more movement going forward, and excited to check and see what's been done and going forward so far.
I am Cinda Fry. I'm with the Department of Education in the Child and Nutrition Program Services. And I am the new head of Farm to School. I just started not too long ago.
Hi, I'm Christine Lang. I'm a new assistant professor and extension specialist based in Brookings. And my area is consumer horticulture, and then also collaborating on local foods research projects as well. And I'm on the Farm to School subcommittee with Anna Barr and AON and Lily.
I'm Chris Dravsov, and I primarily help with just marketing and getting awareness out about the group's gatherings and what's going on.
Great, and I see, oh, there's Jordan.
Hi, this is Jordan Walker with Dakota Rural Action in Brookings, and I was at the coalition, the first coalition meeting out at Cedar Creek Gardens in the spring, and then I also take part with other DRA staff on the Dakota Rural Action Local Foods Committee.
And Rhoda, we haven't heard from you yet. I see Rhoda unmuted, but I'm not hearing her. So I'll just tell you that Rhoda Burrows is our horticulture specialist with SDSU Extension, and maybe she'll get a chance to speak later. But so those people that you've just heard from are the people that have been meeting. And like I said, we are welcoming many, many new members to the group. But one of the things that we talked about as we got back together and regrouped at Cedar Creek Gardens, like Jordan said, in May, we talked about the need to do some education in the state, the need to do some research so we could understand what other states are doing, and the need to really focus on a few key work areas. So at this time, I would like to ask some of the work group chair people to talk a little bit about what their work group has been doing. And I'll tell you our 4 subgroups that we have. We have a group that is working on food sovereignty and food security. We have a group working on farm to school programs. We have a group working on connecting South Dakota communities to federal and state programs. And then we have a group working on branding. And so I'm not sure that everyone is here who is leading those committees, but I know a couple people are definitely, and maybe we'll start there. So farm to school, Anna, would you like to give a little report on your subgroup and what's happening with that?
Yes, I will. So we back in September, I think, decided within our subcommittee that was at the meeting that our areas going forward were to be identifying and engaging stakeholders for South Dakota Farm to School and early care and education, and starting to form a more formalized network of people around farm to school activities. And kind of just identifying who those stakeholders are across the state and who those leaders are. We've also been talking about the need for listening sessions for producers and food service to be occurring in the near future, and are looking at rewriting some surveys for South Dakota producers and school food service directors to keep kind of touching base on where we're at in farm to school. we met as a farm to school subcommittee. So we are inviting the broader audience to attend our subcommittee meetings and just to get more voices heard. We know that most of us who are in this subcommittee right now and are in positions right now of making change around farm to school are new to it, and that there's been momentum in other times. So the big goal right at the beginning is to hear from those who have been involved in farm to school in any way in the past about what their experiences have been. We, in our previous meeting, created a timeline of farm to school activities that goes back to 2010 and then recent with different grants or different local things that were popping up to understand farm to school in our state better. And then states to allow voices to those who've been involved. So that's what we continue to do. We've learned from them what has and hasn't been successful. And where we ran out of time with last time was identifying those different stakeholders that need to be included in further discussions, and that can help us be a more diverse group, which is where we're at now. Is the last call to action that we had for our meeting that's coming up in December was for everyone to extend invitation to the groups or individuals that they know who are farm to school stakeholders and should be part of discussions about what we do as a subcommittee. So that is where we are, and the next conversations too that we didn't get to last time is where we would like to see farm to school go for our state.
Okay, great. Thanks, Anna. And so the farm to school work group is really, Anna is a farm to school specialist with SDSU Extension, but she needs a lot of collaborators. So that work group is set up for that purpose so that you can really get involved in what farm to school looks like in South Dakota. It's been around for a while, but it's really gaining momentum.
Yes, and I should say too, our Lily and I from Dakota Rural Action are working together mostly to spearhead that group. And Dakota Rural Action's had a great involvement in farm to school throughout the years that we are working with them quite a bit on. So
great, really good. I do see also that Matt West is here, and Matt has been part of the group that I've been working on, and that is with connecting our state more to federal and state programs, or connecting communities, I guess, to federal and state programs. Matt, do you want to give a little update?
Sure. So currently we are sort of in, I don't know, the research phase. We have met a few times, getting the lay of the land about learning more about the EBT and double up bucks that exist in South Dakota currently, and looking at ways in which we can expand that process and opportunities for our state. So in that, we are looking at researching what other states do, who are players currently within the state that will participate, or potentially some allies to work with. And we definitely are interested in people joining our subcommittee and broadening the EBT, and also, allowing for double up bucks to hopefully flourish throughout our state. So if people are interested, please reach out to Carrie or myself, and we'll get you plugged in.
Great, thanks, Matt. A lot of times there are programs out there, and either they're underused or we just don't know a lot about them. So that's kind of the focus of this group, is getting the word out, letting people know, and then figuring out in South Dakota how those programs work. We have a food sovereignty, food security work group, and Stephanie Peterson was going to give that report, but I don't know if Stephanie is on. Is there anyone else from that subcommittee that would like to just tell us a little bit about what you've been up to? Christine, are you on that group? Christine Lang?
No, Carrie, sorry, I'm not. Apologies. I had to switch to calling in from my phone.
Okay. Who else is on that work group? Doesn't have to be a formal report. We just want a little update about what that subcommittee is all about.
So I don't see anyone else on the list that's in the subcommittee currently. That's participating right now. But I can say a little bit about it. But I know this subcommittee is working to figure out ways in which they can provide better, not only relationships and networking for producers and growers, but also for consumers. And that space, I don't think they have a defined strategy or goal at this point. But there's Karen Moore and also Stephanie Peterson seem to be two people that are sort of co-chairs in this space. But if you're interested, I know that you can reach out to either one of them and get plugged in.
Thanks, Matt. And then we also have a group working on branding, and Kat Rikus has been doing maybe chairing that group, and she's not with us, but Laura, you have a report from Kat. Do you want to read that?
Yep, and I'll put the link for this in the chat when I'm done as well. But the branding subcommittee met in person in Brookings at the SDSU Local Foods Education Center. Brett Owens, director of the Local Foods Education Center, gave a tour of the center, and the coalition will be working with the Local Foods Education Center to promote the workshops and educations that they offer to the general public, community groups, and beginning farmers, including public workshops on soil health, use of wildlife in farming, aquaponic methods, instructions on specific crops, food safety and production, and how to make a living with small-scale sustainable agriculture. And they will, so they are going to be meeting every other month then. So, and the two contacts for that are Brett Owens and Kathleen Rikus. So if you're interested, please reach out to them, and I'll put their report in the chat.
Okay, great. I put a link to the Google Drive where there's folders in the chat, but I don't, Laura, do you need to invite people to that folder?
I believe that it's open, that as long as you have the link, you should be able to access it.
Okay.
And then within that, there's a spreadsheet that's the 2021 to 2022 Local Foods Conference members. I can do a screen share, perhaps, click.
Coalition members, right?
Yes, thank you. On the so here you can see, if you can just put your email address and your name, and then I'll make sure that you get email or added to the Google group, so that way you're in the correspondences. And then the subcommittee that you're interested in participating in, just mark it over on this other column. Thanks.
Thanks, Laura. That should make it easy for everyone to get involved. One of the things that we also talked about when we first got this group back together is that we really wanted to be committed as organizations to this group, or as individual producers, however you want to join. But we do have a sample letter of commitment in that folder that would be really nice to have people sign. We just feel like it gives us an idea of exactly who is committed to membership in the coalition. It's not a legal document, but it's showing that you really do want to be involved. Some of the challenges that we've had in the past with our Local Foods Coalition is getting the subgroups to stay focused and on task. And we felt like if we had letters of commitment, we have a better idea of who really wants to make this go and make this work. None of us are paid to do this extra work as part of our jobs. It's kind of a passion project for many of us. So we all need a little motivation to kind of keep our work groups going forward. And we felt like maybe the letter of commitment would help, and then regular meetings every month is what we try to do as a big group. And then the subgroups kind of figure out times in between to meet. But trying to hold the subgroups accountable at our regular meetings is another way that we're trying to keep that momentum moving forward. And Laura, since you were sharing your screen, do you want to share that letter of commitment? You can just show a little what it looks like.
So here, and this is the folder that you'd access. There's letter of commitments right here. Anna, way to be the rock star who has hers in already. And then here's a blank template. So you can just download this and adjust it for your group or organization. It just is basically saying that during this time period of from now through December of 2022, your organization is going to send a representation to the bi-monthly meetings, participate in a working group, Committees will have meetings on the months that the coalition does not meet. Be prepared to report working group activities, tasks, and progress at each meeting, and support and uphold the vision. And so if you can just submit those, that, like Carrie was saying, just gives us an idea of who wants to be involved.
Right, so you can join as an individual, you can join as part of a group, you can join as part of a formal organization. We're not choosy, but that letter of commitment can be uploaded into that folder, and then we know that you're definitely wanting to be a committed part of this coalition. And I did say that wrong. The big group meets bi-monthly, and the work groups meet in the months that the big group doesn't meet. So thanks, Laura, for showing that. All right, so so one of the things that I did want to say too is the work groups right now are fairly broad, but if you wanted to just join one to find out what's going on and what it's like, you're welcome to do that. And if it's not for you, again, we don't hold anybody legally responsible for what you're doing. We just want members that care, that have a passion about what we're doing and trying to accomplish as far as local foods initiatives. So if you want to just check out one of the work groups and then decide if you want to commit and get involved, we're open to that too. You probably need to contact us to find out the dates when we're meeting next. But the big group, this whole group of Local Foods Coalition members, is meeting on the 16th of November. That's on a Tuesday. And we're going to meet at 1 p.m. I'm assuming 1 p.m. Mountain Time, because that's what I have on my calendar, and 2 p.m. Central Time. So if you are interested in that, we need to send you a Zoom link. So be sure that you let us know. You can either do that in the chat now, or you can let any of us know between now and the 16th, and we'll put you on the list so that you at least can attend the next meeting and learn a little bit more about what's going on with this group. I would love to have you ask questions. Some of you that are just joining for the first time. Sometimes those of us that have been in it a while don't realize all the questions that you might have. So go ahead and either throw a question in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask.
Tina, can you throw your email in the chat box, and then I'll get you added to the Google group right now. I think I just added Annie.
Or like Laura said, you can even go into that. If you can get into that page where the members are at, you can add yourself if you'd like to. Thanks, Tina. Anybody else have questions? We don't have a formal website for this group yet, but if you want to know a little bit about food coalitions in states, we took a close look at Wyoming's local food coalition, and we might be patterned just slightly after their coalition. We thought they had some good ideas, and they do have a website. So if you want to go on and just look at what they're doing, we're not trying to copy, but we're trying to pattern our coalition a little bit after some of the things that they've been doing. We're really open to membership. We're really trying to focus on a few key areas to work on every year. Any questions? Anybody want to say why they came today?
One thing, this is Chris with Specialty Producers. One thing, I can be helpful with, I think, is communicating what these subgroups are doing. We do have the South Dakota Local Foods Facebook page, which we advertise the conference through, but just getting, up articles and information, because I agree. I think that the people involved know what's going on, but I think we could get more people involved if we communicate the activities a little bit better. So chairs, keep in mind that, like, if you want articles out there, we can get things put together, drafted. You'll kind of need to send me the paragraphs written up that you want to share, but let's work on really getting the word out so that I think it'll grow the group.
Thanks, Chris. That's a great idea. And you can feel free to go into those folders too, and there may be updates in there that you could draw from, or contact one of us that forgot to contact you to see if there's a story or a piece there that could go on Facebook or out even in a news release at some point. And Marla's asked if there's a cost to join the group, and right now we don't have a cost to join the group. As we get more formal and as we maybe want a budget, we may think about that, but right now the membership has no cost to it. Just commitment. Any other thoughts or questions? Okay, and Marla's asked, so you don't have any funding to work on projects? Not through this group, there's not funding, but I think we all know there are funding sources out there, and it seems like right now, maybe even more funding than normal for local foods type projects. So I think those of us in the work groups, probably all the work groups have at least someone who is familiar with the grants that are out there and what we might be able to look at for funding. The South Dakota Department of Ag has been a part of this group too, and I don't know if anyone is on from Department of Ag today, but they have been another partner that I don't think anyone was represented when they introduced themselves. And there's another question about, is this primarily for those in food sales? Not at all, Mary. This is for anyone interested in promoting local foods in the state. And do you have any contacts with USDA Ag Marketing Services? I think there are several of us that have had grants through the Ag Marketing Service. And while we don't have a USDA rural development person that's been regularly attending these meetings yet, we have in the past had some contacts there. It probably would be a good idea to reach out and try to find a representative from that group that would be willing to commit. So if any of you know somebody from rural development in South Dakota that's interested in joining this group, feel free to reach out. Any other thoughts that you want to throw out for this group today? I'm hoping that there are many of you that are excited about it and want to join. I think it's a good way to collectively make some movement in the state around local foods. We have not specifically talked policy, but I could see some of our work groups leaning towards policy, which we really don't have a lot of in South Dakota. So there might be a lot of things down the road that we can't even imagine right now, but we want to start where we're at with our work groups that we've identified for the next year at least, and we hope that many of you will join us. I don't want to belabor the meeting today. We just really wanted to give you a little information about who the group is and what we're working on, and encourage you to join us, do a letter of commitment, join a work group. This is a call to action for you. But if there's no other questions, does anyone else have any final words before we close the meeting today?
I had a quick question with the email list. I was just looking to double check, and has it actually been used for discussion, or is it just mostly notification? Because I can't see archives to see any previous discussion if there was. So I was just going to see if that could be.
Is there not a
guess-
folder for minutes in there?
Well, there's for minutes, but I'm talking on the Google Groups where you can see the actual discussion. Just so we don't retread. But it was just, okay, is that an announcement list or is it a discussion list or is it kind of a crossover of both?
The email list is who has attended meetings so far.
Okay.
But
And-
yeah,
and
I
wanted
think
to-
in the Google groups, it's mainly just been used for notifications of meetings coming up. More
Okay.
discussion on what's happened at the meetings would be in the folders in the Google Drive.
Okay. Okay.
Anyone else? I think people are starting to drift off, and I want to say I appreciate all of you coming this morning to learn a little bit more about the South Dakota Local Foods Coalition. And again, feel free to type your email in if you want to be kept on a list. You can go into the folder and put your name on the list, or you can talk to any of us that have that are on that list to be added and to be reminded when the next Zoom meeting link comes out. We hope to sometime soon meet in person, but for now we have been doing it via Zoom. So it has been easy for people not to have to travel. I guess one of the work groups did meet in Brookings in person at one point.
And for anyone who's planning on sticking around for the South Dakota Specialty Producers meeting, that's going to be starting in about 25 minutes with the same link. So if you plan on attending that, you can just mute your microphone and camera and stay on this link.
Thanks everybody so much for being a part of this today. We hope to see you again.
I'm ready.
Okay, I'd like to welcome all of you guys. I'm Cindy Toll. I'm the president of the South Dakota Specialty Producers Association. And today we're just gonna have a chance to kind of share what we've been doing to our membership and those of you that are interested in meeting with us or joining us. That are interested. And basically, I'm going to turn this over now to Laura and Chris to kind of do the nuts and bolts. And then I'm going to talk about some money we have for aggregation at the tail end of the session today. So any producers or consumers that are out there that are interested in getting your products to market, this will be a very important discussion. And after the last meeting we had, even more so. Okay, so with no further ado, Chris.
I will go ahead and start. I'm Chris Dravsov. I'm one of the contractors with the Specialty Producers Association. So the first thing we're going to talk about today is the different grant projects that we have. We have 4 active grants right now. So I'll just kind of go through them so you're aware of some of the projects we're working on. So the grant that we have 1 year left on is focused on farmers markets. We've had this for a few years. So we launched the Farmers Market Coalition, which is the chapter of farmers markets under SPA, but farmers markets across the state are welcome to participate. We have worked on this very closely with Rhoda Burrows at SDSU Extension. She kind of was getting the group together a few years back, and we just had kind of have worked on really formalizing it this past year and having regular meetings. A piece of this project was further developing the farmers market website on the SPA website. So now we have this official place for farmers markets in the state. Every year we go through and we update the listing of farmers markets in the state, just to make sure that everyone is aware, trying to keep track of who's running and where we've grown over the years. We have helped over the last few years by sponsoring online software for farmers markets. That kicked off right when COVID was hitting to help get a few markets online. We had a signage sponsorship last year to help 8 farmers markets in the state end up getting awarded $450, I believe it was, to get some signage for their markets. We had a pricing project that we did this past year where farmers markets over the season 3 times could submit their prices. So we have those reports up on the website now. Through that, we had some incentives. So let's see, the Market and Pier there, they won the chef event. And then we've had 2 other markets win some marketing sponsorships for participating in that. We developed a rack card this past year that was put in over 140 sites across the state, including the interstate welcome centers that have a QR code on it that you can scan and then see all the farmers markets in the state. And then we've just done some partnerships with some magazine ads. We were in South Dakota Magazine, helped with a commercial out in the Black Hills. So that's kind of been what that grant has been about, is really supporting the farmers markets. The next grant that we have focuses on marketing. So we had hired a contractor to help SDSBI come up with some strategies to help increase awareness of specialty crops in South Dakota. So one of the projects we did was help farmers, producers launch websites. And so we've completed, I believe, about 5 out of the 10 websites. There's a few in progress. And then this winter, we'll be launching our last set of applications. I think we'll be taking 3 this year to, we'll have somebody help you launch a website for your farm to get you out there on the internet. We've held workshops. We had a series of webinars last winter. We will have 1 more webinar boosting your online customer connections here in January. And then we are also having this fall and winter 2 face-to-face marketing workshops. These are day-long workshops. One will be in Sturgis and it's next week. So get registered by Monday if you want to participate. It's going to be great. It'll cover Facebook and online marketing things, branding, that type of thing. And then we'll have another one in January in Mitchell. This grant also helps support just awareness. We go to events in the state and just try to promote the industry in the state. So it helps support some of the booth things and the travel involved in that. Things like, the state fair and Ag Day at the Pavilion, or attending Ag Fest in Pierre with the legislators. The next grant is a newer grant, and it really has focused on education related to production, processing, marketing. We held root washer and green spinner workshops this year where people were able to come in and actually construct and build these systems, learn how to do that. We had webinars related to the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. We held a value-added product webinar with the Recipe to Reality series that comes out of UNL. She came and did a workshop for us. We developed a podcast series last year, IPM related, for very specific crops. So we had a berry IPM podcast, a cucurbit, one for peppers and tomatoes, and one for melons. So they talk about crop specific IPM, and those are available on our website right now. And we'll be doing another series this winter. So if you have requests, let us know. This grant also helps fund our involvement in the local foods conference. And then this is the grant that just starts to dabble in some planning for some community level aggregation discussions. The grant that we just received notice on, I think last week, it was finally approved, will include us partnering with a Atlantic Corporation, and they're going to do an economic impact study of the state. And then with this information, we'll be able to sort of break the state into 4 geographical regions, and then that can kind of continue that aggregation planning project in the state. We did submit just in October here a second 2021 specialty crop block grant. It's pending. We won't know for a while if we've received it or not, but this one is going to focus on supporting those retail locations, kind of like how we supported the farmers market locations. Now we want to do one for retailers, those farm stores, food hubs, things like that, where we can give them a little bit of extra support to help boost awareness of those types of locations in the state. So that's an overview of our grant projects that we have been working on. I will turn it over to Laura. She'll talk about the farmers market group a little bit more.
Thanks, Chris. So for those of you who I haven't met yet, my name is Laura Kaler. I'm just started in about May this year. And so I've been working on some of the projects and then also working with planning this local foods conference this week. But one of the projects that I've been working on is the farmers market chapters, just kind of ways that we can support those farmers markets so that way we're supporting the producers that sell there. Many of the projects Chris did talk about, but I don't know if she mentioned that we do the monthly meetings. So managers and vendors are welcome to come to these monthly meetings, and we've got some different topics that we've highlighted, like taxes and for vendors, which isn't a fun topic, but it's important. Some safety things. And the next meeting, we are going to talk about the certified naturally grown program. So we really want to have the managers and your vendors come to those meetings. If you're following along on the agenda that I put in the chat, it's that PDF. I'll just kind of cruise through it since a lot of it Chris kind of hit on already. We're trying to do some more education things. She talked about most of them. And then for industry promotion, looking for opportunities where we can promote specialty producers. One thing to keep in mind is that we do have a presence at the South Dakota Value Added Egg Day tent during the state fair. And this year, even with the very rainy day that we had during Thursday's state fair, we had a great turnout of people coming through. So I'd really encourage you, if you're a producer, to maybe watch for that next year. We were able to sponsor several of our spa members to come and showcase their products at that event. So we'd love to have you consider coming to it. It's the Thursday of State Fair. And then we've also been involved with the Local Foods Coalition, which if you were on the meeting prior to this, I think most of you were, kind of summarize projects that we've been working on. And then doing a lot with this year's SPA was the host of the Local Foods Conference. So, or the kind of the lead of the coalition groups, SPA took the lead as the organizer for that. So we've been doing a lot with that. Chris, do you have anything regarding communications that you want to hit on?
Yes, I'm going to pop this up. I'm going to try to screen share here. I just want to show a couple things on our website. I don't always know that everyone is aware. Okay, can you see the website here?
Yep, it's showing up.
Okay, so the SPA website was revamped about 2019. And we really wanted to make it a useful tool for producers as well as the public. So one of the key features that we have on our website is our producer and product pages. We broke out everything by product group. So for example, let's go to fruit, and then we have a berries page, for example. And on the berries page, one of the things we have is a Google map. So you can say, okay, I live in this part of the state, who's near me? And so I think it helps you track down a little bit better who's in your region. We do accept anyone on this map. You don't have to be a SPA member. We just want to create awareness for the public as to where you are and that you have product available. We do a pull out here of our members to feature them specifically. And as well, they are added down to this map down here where they can, or this chart where they can highlight what specific types of berries they have. The other component that this has is some resources on production, as well as awareness of any other organization that might be useful to be aware of. So we try to highlight, like here we have the Aronia, a group that exists called out there. We also try to connect any relevant industry news in that section. So each product group has pages like this, take input, send anything I'm missing my way. If you're not on the map, it's definitely not on purpose. Just shoot me an email saying I'm here, I exist, and I will get you added. Another component of the website that we've spent a lot of time on, I mentioned, was that farmers market page. So I'm going to pop onto the farmers market page and show you. We have a place again for resources. We have a map of all the farmers markets in the state. We have each farmers market listed, as well as if you click on the details button, it'll pop up hours, vendor number, maybe the types of products you can find at that market. And we spend every winter updating this to have relevant information. Now, we had talked about that rack card that's in the tourism sites. That will link you to this page when you scan it. A couple of those other resources that we had available are here. We have the pricing reports available here. We have a place where you can share your needs by filling out the form there. The chapter, the Farmers Market Coalition of South Dakota, we have a newsletter that we shoot out to them. So you can see all the old newsletters here in this section as well. So a lot of resources on this farmers market page. The website has definitely a lot of tools. One of SPA's goals is to just communicate to the producers and to the consumers that are interested. So we have events on our event calendar. We do a monthly newsletter. It's always huge. There's always so many things to share, but you can see all these old newsletters. It's current things going on in the state, events, stories of things going on in the state. So I encourage you to sign up for the newsletter if you're not already. Members should automatically be getting this, but you can also get it as a non-member. We try to keep relevant information on here. You know, we've had chefs who have been participants in things. We put their recipes up. We have places where we feature what the coalition is doing. The last thing I guess I'll mention is just we also have our Facebook site. So it's, if you just put SDSPA in the Facebook search, it should pop up there for you. But that's kind of just relevant activity again that's going on to keep you in the loop. So I think next we can go into just some of the events that are coming up. Laura, do you want to go through those?
Yep. So these, Chris also mentioned these, but on the agenda are the links if you'd like to sign up or get some more information on the events coming up. So next Wednesday in Sturgis, if you feel like you missed out on seeing Sturgis this week, you have an opportunity to go next Wednesday. There's going to be a day-long workshop on branding your business online and off. And we also have a local chef using local produce from Sturgis. So it should be an excellent lunch in addition to a learning experience. And then in January, if you're looking more for just a quick virtual workshop, we're going to have boosting your online customer connections. And that's just about, I think runs from about 11 to 1. And that's the second link on the agenda. And the third one is going to be in Mitchell, January 22nd. And that's another day-long in-person event with simple marketing for producers and vendors. So we hope that you guys can take advantage of going there and getting some new ideas and learning how to keep up with marketing in a changing world. We also have an opportunity this year to be putting on some webinars and podcasts. And so I guess with that, I would love if Chris and I could not talk for a minute and instead hear it from you. What would you guys like to have some topics on for webinars and podcasts? You want to put them in the chat or unmute yourself? Just start throwing out ideas and we'll list down what you have. So is it something specific as a production topic that you'd like, something related to marketing, something maybe the agritourism type pieces, things that maybe were discussed during the conference that you'd like to think or hear more on?
Everybody's shy.
This is what agritourism, one person put in the chat box.
Yeah, this is what SPA does best, is helping the producers.
So if you think back to some of the workshops that you were in the past couple of days, anything that you'd like to learn more on? If not, I'll put my email in the chat box and you can send me an email if anything comes to mind later. We'd love to have your input. If we're going to be creating something, we want it to be something that you need and can use. Same goes for tours. Is there anyone here that would be interested in hosting a tour at your farm? I imagine some of you maybe are thinking this is something you're interested in, but don't want to speak up right now, in which case feel free to direct message us through the chat or email me if that's something that you'd be willing to consider. Or being just a host site, such as when we had our root washer workshops, we had 2 farms on different sides of the state host that. So if maybe you're not sure that you want to give a formal tour of your place, but you'd be willing to be a host for an event, let us know that as well. Okay, so the next thing I'd like to make you aware of is we've done quite a bit of development with the chapters as far as setting up a formal procedure for if, say that you and a group of berry growers would like to get together and form a formal chapter under SPA, what that would look like. So we've got some documents in place that you can look at and see if that's something that you and your peers would be interested in doing. One group that is looking at setting up is the organic chapter. Is there anyone on here that is an organic producer? Or is looking into going that route?
I am, this is Cindy.
I am as well. This is Michelle.
Michelle is? Tina said, yep. So in order to create the chapter, we need to have 5 members that say they would be interested in forming this chapter. I think a lot of the goals of the organic chapter would be to bring in some educational opportunities to help with the licensing and working through questions that arise, but working through it as a group. So if that's something that you'd be interested in, we would love to be able to have that chapter put into place this fall yet. So that way, when people are signing up in the spring, they see that as an option. So if you are interested in being one of the first 5 chapter or producers that's a member of that chapter, if you could email me, that would be much appreciated, and we'll go into that. And if, yeah, there's a different topic that you and some other producers would like to create, let us know. And it doesn't just have to be producers. You could be a consumer that really supports organic food production, and you could join as well. Kristen, do you want to talk on the membership drive?
Yeah, just a reminder that we'll be launching our membership drive here in December and into the beginning of 2022. So just be watching for that. It's a time where you'll be able to sign up for committees. So if there is a certain committee that you have interested in getting communications on or being involved in, it's a time to do that. You know, for example, like if you're interested in being a part of the Legislative Action Committee, you would check that as you do your membership registration. Membership is not very much. It's $25. It goes towards you know, the contractors and some of the projects that we do. But you know, SPA's main mission is to coordinate education that's wanted. We're trying to connect people, network people, help them get together. And then we're promoting an industry on the whole. So those are the main 3 things, you know, that's our mission. And so if you support that, we really encourage you to join, again, for $25 and participate in SPA in the future.
Do you want to
with that, Cindy, so I guess I can lead into this then. One of the committees that you'll have the opportunity to sign up for would be this aggregation group. And believe me, this is in its infancy as far as what we're going to do. But if this is something that you want to be involved in, you can add that committee to your list and then join these conversations, these planning events to help direct what we should do with this aggregation. So Cindy, I'll let you take it over.
Okay, that sounds great. Thanks, you guys. And I have to say, you know, pass out a big thanks to Chris and Laura for all the hard work they always do, and Laura especially for all your coordination of the conference. And Chris, you guys are awesome. We couldn't do it without you. So thank you very, very much. So for most producers, I think what either makes you or breaks you is having a market. And all the producers that I have spoken to, and I deal with a lot of them owning a packing facility, they're really good producers, but they're not really skilled at developing markets. And so that's where the weak link is. So marketing is a really important part of this. And a lot of producers don't have the bandwidth to market. I mean, they just don't have time, they don't have the money, they don't have whatever. And so that's one of the things that we're going to focus on here in the next several years at SPA is really supporting the Local Foods Coalition and really supporting the producers and the consumers in the state of South Dakota to get producers and consumers together. And aggregation is a really important part. You know, a lot of the consumers in the state are big consumers: grocery stores, hospitals, schools, executive cafes. They're big markets, and we could actually serve those markets if we work together. And that's one of the focuses of the aggregation committee. We just got funding for aggregation, and we'll be splitting the state into 4 different regions, and we're going to be looking at aggregation really, really hard, and how to get folks to aggregate and how to work the logistics of getting you know, food to consumers. And yeah, I know for me, I mean, today is kind of an interesting day because I'm delivering meat, and I just delivered about $10,000 worth of stuff to 2 people. And that, once I started, you know, having the ability and the quantities to deliver to larger clients, that really made a difference for me in my business model and my economics and my life and everything. It's so much easier to sell the big customers than it is to sell. I mean, I'd much rather, you know, sell $10,000 to one customer than, you know, $1,000 to 10. So, and I think a lot of producers are like that. It's just so much easier to work on the logistics of that. So aggregation is going to be a big thing for me. And I'm going to lead the committee on aggregation, since I already do that for meat proteins in the state. And I also do that for, I aggregate cheese and honey and mushrooms, and help a lot of the vegetable producers get into these larger accounts that I have. So I'm going to go ahead and take the lead on the aggregation committee. So if anybody out there would like to be part of this, if you're on the committee, you can help make this happen. And then another goal of the aggregation committee is really going to be supporting the Local Foods Coalition, because that, I think, is so important to get support throughout the state at all levels. So does anybody have any questions on any of that before? I'm looking at the list. All of us are we're all speaking to the choir here, but aggregation committee, let's spread the word. Peggy, you're on. Peggy's a really good resource for aggregation of vegetables. Rhoda's on. She's, you know, she is the plant guru, and can address any of those producer questions about what's needed for aggregation and what's needed to get into different you know, consumer types. So does anybody have any specific questions? Because I want to go through a couple details on aggregation here in just a second. But I just want to talk about some of the large clients and what it's going to take to get into them. Anybody? Okay, nothing. No chats. Okay, so some of the large consumers in the state are the universities and the hospitals. And I sat in on the farm to school programs chat earlier today. Those are huge markets for us potentially as producers in the state. But they all require a certain amount of stuff. We need volume. And so as producers, if we aggregate, we can fill the volume needs for all of these consumers, or most of them anyway. But the requirement to aggregate, I mean, you can't just like show up. It was interesting because on the farm to table deal, it was like, okay, well, you're the producer. You just go up and chat with the person at food service. It's just not really, that's not really how it works. What you have to do is really approach this as a consorted, you know, as a producer, you're not going to have enough volume to fill the needs at the school unless you're Cedar Creek Gardens or Evergreen Ranching. Most people just don't have the type of volumes that Peggy and I deal with. So it's really unrealistic to just go up and say, hey, I've got a bunch of tomatoes to the school, you know, food nutrition department, and say, hey, would you like to buy those? I think we're so much going to be so much more powerful if we actually have a plan moving forward in order to service these markets. And that's one of the things we're going to focus on. We have to have things in place. We have to have logistics. We have to have liability insurance. We have to have transportation mechanisms. All those things are going to be required. Food safety audits. And we've got all the parts and pieces throughout the state. We just need to aggregate everybody and get all of these pieces into the same page so we can implement it. So that's going to be my goal with this aggregation money we just got from the South Dakota Specialty Block Grant. So any comments, suggestions, questions before we wrap up the conference? Let's see who's on here. And please don't forget to attend. Michelle, are you hosting that the marketing seminar next week? Are you doing the food piece?
No.
I think Travis is getting food from you though, isn't he?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I had to get back on track of what we were talking about here.
Right.
Yeah, we're sourcing the ingredients, and then Travis is making the meal for it. Yes. Sorry, Cindy, I didn't understand.
Okay, that's what I was hoping, because I'm definitely going to attend the marketing seminar. I'm really looking forward to that. And you guys spread the word. We have a lot of great resources, and the season's kind of winding down and people have time. So I think a lot of our cool stuff that we're doing needs to just get out there in front of people so we can have better attendance, because we are doing really cool things. And keep your eyes out, Michelle, on our retail grant that we just wrote if we get it, because you're perfect for marketing support from us.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, are we good to go? Carrie, thanks a lot for your the Local Foods Coalition. That was really interesting.
And thank you everyone who came to the conference. And if you do have any thoughts of webinars, podcasts, or anything else you'd like to see us doing, please send us an email.
Okay, everybody enjoy this beautiful Saturday. I know in the Black Hills, it's gorgeous. I'm going to go climbing. So have a good day, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, bye.